We have got a temporary freeze on Jeff at the worst possible moment. That is very strange. Let me go ahead and disconnect and reconnect to the call. I am so sorry about that. Yeah, no, the stream didn't freeze. It was the Google Hangout.
So
Unfortunately,
I know
here we go. So
which
we're
one
back
is
now.
which. So I gotta
Uh,
put the.
Jeff, can you hear us?
You're really light.
What do you mean? Like really
Oh, there we
quiet?
go.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Apparently, of course, the instant I step away, it turns out there was the stream decided to freeze, and so
So I've been talking to myself.
yeah, exactly. So
Ah.
I do hate to tell you. All right, so let me get you over to get the camera back over to you instead of this infinity sweet infinity shot we got going. All right, one moment. Oh, that's funny.
Oh, lame. Talking to myself.
All right, there we go. I got you back. Sorry about that. It was
No, it's okay. It's okay.
it's of course the exact second I step away that this sort of thing happens. Anyway, what progress kind of have you made since there might be a little discrepancy between what's been what people may have seen and what you may have done?
Okay, so what I did here is I went ahead and glued the two pieces of the platform together and pulled off my clamps. And then I dry fit the two pieces that will fit together to create its blocking screen. And one thing I knew about the last one, but I didn't, is that this fits so tightly that I don't really need to glue it down. In fact, I can end up rotating it a bit. Now, how often am I going to do this on the board? Probably never. But it's nice to know I can, so I don't think I will glue that down because it is such a tight fit.
I don't know.
I
If you're
will.
like me, I know my Primaris repulsor. Every time you would move anything, I'd be like, "Eek," and just move the little
Well,
turret on the top.
the
Like,
tanks are different. The tanks I can glue down because of the exact same reason, because I want to move them around too. But this one I think I will not glue down,
okay.
and that basically is that for that one because I have a big pile of these heavy weapons. And what I've been doing here is I've been cutting out the pieces for the two unique guardsmen who are the gunners, the modeled gunners. Once again, it doesn't really matter to the rules. Um, but the model guardsmen, these are different from all of the other ones. And when I do a production like this, I'll cut all the pieces out and I'll put them in the piles that represent the model that's going to be assembled. And then once all the pieces are down, and I will go through and actually clean them all up and start gluing them together.
Really? Okay. And so as far as while we're working through these pieces, because I know for the next little bit it'll be kind of more of what we've been talking about as far as you know, getting pieces and moving them and kind of just fitting them and making it all good. What's kind of like some of the lore of the Eldari? I knew you were talking about the paths the other night, which I'm a huge find I find hugely interesting as a just a sci-fi nerd in general. Can you kind of take us through the paths of the Eldari?
Yeah, for sure. So one thing I mentioned earlier about the Eldar is that they experience emotions in a much greater range than other races do. This provides them with unmatched heights of ecstasy and joy and happiness, but also bottomless pits of despair and doubt and violence. And because those emotions and that excess has led to the downfall of the race at their zenith and the birth of the new Chaos God, the Eldar that survived on the Craft Worlds, the Craft World Eldar, um, came up with this idea of the path system, where every single aspect of their life aboard that ship or outside of that ship would be matched into various paths that, when combined, would add up to the sum total of the experiences available. Eldar live an insanely long time. I believe Eldrad is about 10,000 years old, so an Eldar can walk a lot of paths, even if they
Um,
walk a path for
E-
decades.
Eldrad. Who's Eldrad?
Eldrad Ulthuan is the Farseer of Ulthua, I want to say. The Ulthua craft world, I may be getting this wrong, but the Ulthua craft world is the one closest to the Eye of Terror. So they are constantly dealing with chaos attacks, and they have kind of grown a very mm, doom and gloom is, I guess, a decent way of describing it. Outlook about their life. They very much have this much darker viewpoint. Um, Eldrad Ulthuan is the farmost Farseer, and there are a couple different kinds of psychers you can have with an Eldar group. And a Farseer, because of the ways the Eldar minds work, they can actually look into the future. They can prognosticate. They have long and short term precognition they can use to see what kinds of fate await their race. And what a Farseer will do is they'll actually really look through all the skeins of fate and find the timelines that save or protect or influence um, the livelihood and success and efficacy of their world and their people. And what happens is that it causes them to take action on what appears to be very small or very unrelated events to other races, makes them appear mercurial and unfathomable. But to the Farseers, they know that perhaps if they kill this one Imperial commander now, then in 1,000 years his descendants won't bring war to that craft world. And Eldrad Ulthuan is the foremost Farseer of all of the Eldar race.
That's crazy. We got a comment which I find kind of entertaining. It's a Farseal will what a Farseal will do is get punked by Araman. XD. And I also want to
Yes.
say I don't mean to take away, but I also don't. I did switch it to your face cam, which is partially on me. But don't forget if you want to keep working, I'll keep the cam on your hands. I apologize.
Oh no, it's okay. I figured whenever I talk, I'm trying to look at my webcam just in case. And if I'm telling a story, I have a hard time focusing on a knife in my hands, and I find
Yeah,
myself.
it's actually been kind of entertaining watching you try to manage your gestures along with your storytelling and working at the same time. I'm like, oh,
Oh yes, I think I'm one of those people where if you handcuff my hands, I wouldn't be able to talk. Oh, so the paths. So basically, what happens is on a craft world, life is regimented in these very fine, discrete elements. And Eldar could walk many of them over the course of their lifetime. For instance, the path of service. An Eldar who is a waiter or a janitor or something equivalent to those
any
jobs.
job a wannabe actor would take.
Exactly, exactly. Except, unlike an actor, they actually learn humility. Um,
I think I just got skewered subtly.
not quite. No, no, no. But for an elder, this doesn't mean that they're just taking up a job to bust tables. It's they're learning humility. They're channeling this particular part of their mind into a beneficial purpose that has guidance and has structure. It doesn't maybe not seem as important to that particular one, but if we take say the path of the artist. Artisans are all about sensory experience. They want to see, they want to feel, they want to experience, which is part of the Eldar psyche. They want to encounter all those things and feel it to their excess. That's dangerous. But the path of the artist teaches them to take those sensory and emotional input and turn them into physical representation. Therefore, channeling that in a productive way, and they learn to deal with that part of their being without it taking them down. And where this
Interesting.
becomes the most apparent, go ahead.
Basically, learning how to express the experiences in a healthy way rather than just falling into the insanity that can come with it. Interesting. It'd be like if you took an average art student and they didn't have to make a living at the same time, and they could actually learn their art. No.
Who knows what they would do? Yes. And this path system is all the more important when it comes to the path of war, the aspect shrines that are represented on the craft worlds. Eldar are just as prone to walk a path of violence or rage or pain or despair and want to act upon it. And those are very dangerous emotions for an Eldar because once again, they experience those at a much more intense level. So the path of the warrior is really a way for them to work in a particular manner and a particular philosophy. So, for instance, one of the books that I'm rereading right now, I believe it's called The Path of the Warrior. One of the three Gav Thorpe books, which he is like, I think, one of the progenitors of the whole Eldar story. So he writes good books about him. Um, he's
And
been kind
that's
of
Thorpe with
spurned
two
by someone he
P's.
loves. Yeah, and betrayed by a friend, and he's violent, he's angry, he's hurt. He doesn't know what to do with those feelings. And so when he talks to the other Eldar that are on the path of the aspect shrines, they ask him, they say, "How are you feeling?" And he says, I want to lash out, I want to hide, I just want to, go away." And they tell him, "Go to the shrine of the striking scorpions."
And is that
So the
the
aspect
channel is named after the striking scorpions, correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
It's named after, I believe it's named after the Striking Scorpions. And once again, that's a fantastic channel. They do beautiful stuff. Um, But the aspect shrines embody a particular manner of war. And one thing I didn't know when I was a kid was why. I thought they were just randomly selected, which of course they could have at the time, but
Yeah.
the way the story plays out now is that they represent a kind of pain or anger or violence that you might experience. For instance, this particular character in this book was he wanted to lash out, he wanted to hide, he wanted to, strike from the shadows, and so that was exactly what that shrine was built for. So he goes to walk the path of the striking scorpion, and in that he's taught to channel those violent, painful feelings in what's called the war mask. The war mask being kind of this literal and figurative mask that they put on while they go fight. It allows them to do violence and to commit atrocity and to shed blood. But when they walk away from it and they put that mask down, they disconnected from it. They don't remember it. They don't bring it with them. So the path of the warrior is really the path to inner peace, and they serve
Mhm.
their craft world.
So
So
no
these
no
aspects are
Buddhism
important.
in this particular culture. No, just because.
I imagine that there is. I think if we dug around, we could find one that probably came close. But the Aztec shrines are really important. So you have the Howling Banshees and the Swooping Hawks and the Dire Avengers, and they're all meant to allow Eldar to channel violence into a productive way, but also to walk away from that path and feel peace. And this is where the really interesting thing happens is that sometimes Eldar can't walk away from that particular path. They get stuck on it. They can't take off their war mask in this case. Now, all
Or
kinds of
their
Eldar could,
online handle, according to Ferris Wheel.
there you go. Yes. A lot of them, they might be stuck, being an artist or being a tutor or being a singer or whatever. Um, Souls who are stuck on the path of the warrior become exarchs who are feared and pitied and revered by the rest of the culture. They are violence incarnate. They cannot leave that method. They remember the bloodshed, they remember the violence, and they crave it. And so they don't interact with normal society. In fact, they end up becoming more of a gestalt entity, which we talked about a couple times with the spirit warriors. Basically, we talked about how those spirit stones take the souls of the Eldar, and when they die, it protects them from She Who Thirsts, and it also allows them to be released into the infinity circuits of their ships. Exarchs cannot be released back into the infinity circuit.
Now, will they
They are
like
too violent.
will they corrupt? Basically, is that kind of the?
If you imagine your typical Eldar, who they are all very psychic, they're all very empathic. As I mentioned, in our ship, we might, press a button and say, "Hey, I need to talk to Hitch." In their ship, I would maybe press a button and think, "Hey, I would, feel kindness and warmth or requirement, and I would project it at, my imagery in my mind of Hitch, and he would feel that call." All Eldar work that way. So to be around someone who is walking a path of violence is disruptive. It's scary. They know that they're important, but they feel all of that bloodshed and that part of their psyche that they can't deal with unless they're on the path. Since
s-
exarchs are lost on it, they can't be released into the infinity circuit. They're too disruptive.
Is there a leadership path that you can get lost in as well?
Yes, I believe so. They're called autarchs, the captains and generals of the army. And like any other path, I believe you may not get stuck on the autarch's path, but it is kind of the path of command. Um, the non-psychic path of command. Farseers end up portraying kind of that other side.
Gotcha.
Um, but like the general of my particular army here, this
So,
guy is my autarch.
oh, here, let me switch to your hands. And it's kind of funny. It seems like you rock the path, and hopefully the goal is to get through all the paths. But it seems like because of I'm gonna just say it, the near addictive personality of most Eldari, they just end up being happy but stuck in this one path.
Yeah, which
It's kind
is
of an
even
interesting.
darker. It is, and I think it's a fantastic story. I think that this is where it goes beyond the space cells, where it's really
Yeah.
unique to this particular story.
It's funny. I
Um,
was running my D&D game. I think I might add this since I don't have any players watching right now. I might add this to this certain elf society that they might be interacting with, or even a dwarf society, because fantasy-wise, this idea of such a structured existence might fit really well with the dwarf, like a dwarven society. But especially when it comes to somebody getting obsessed and abusing an addictive personality, fantasy dwarves are notorious for that.
Yeah,
Actually,
I can see it.
let's go ahead and dive back into your building because I'd like to get you not waste all of your time and have you actually be able to get something
No, no,
done.
no. The only thing I was going to add is that, since they have those spirit stones and they can't join the Infinity Circuit, basically the armor of the Exarch warriors turns into an Infinity Circuit, and all the spirit stones that have ever been worn by those who have worn the suit are still in the suit. It's a gestalt consciousness and recollection of all of those warriors, primarily dominated by the first. So when someone becomes an Exarch and they take up the suit and add their consciousness to it, they're swamped by the memories and recollections of everyone who ever wore the suit before, and they have
Unless they
to,
have like a super powerful consciousness that is able to take over
even
the
then, usually the first
first.
one is the most powerful, especially with the Phoenix Lords. They are the Exarchs of Exarchs.
Oh,
Um,
apparently, Ferris was telling me Imperial Knights are have a similar thing going on.
their throne, yes, they have the throne. In fact, the rite of passage for a pilot in the houses, in order to take up the mantle of a knight, is to sit and endure the throne's judgment of all those pilots and all those experiences, kind of swamping you at the same time and seeing if you're worthy.
That's such an interesting idea as far as like it's such a sci-fi but also fantasy idea because you have the sci-fi aspect of being able to record and distribute these memories back, but also sci-fi and the intermingling of the actual souls by the end of the process. So we'll go ahead and switch back over to your hand cam and I'm seeing mostly your left hand. Can you kind of tell us what you're doing? I see you're
Oh
shaving
yeah,
off little
sure.
bits. There we go.
There we go. Yeah, I'm just cleaning up, so I've divided up my two miniatures I'm going to assemble for this particular step. And now that all the pieces are cut out, I'm just going over them and picking out any of the extra flashing and
Okay,
shaping it up.
so I don't get this reference, but maybe you will. Ferris Will is saying, and the emotion you hold during the experience of sitting on the throne um, has that on the knight forever. So you really hate Randall because he's a prick. Everyone ever uses a knight that will hate Randall, even if he's long dead. And it's not a reference. Randall is just a funny name. Okay, perfect. Okay, so it appears like yeah, somebody sits on it just thinking like, like just a douchebaggy thoughts, and then everybody who has to go through it after him is like, man, Randall's such a fucking idiot. And now the knight really wants. So the knight overall would want to fucking kill Randall, but fucking Randall just. He's already dead. Fucking douchebag Randall. Like, this enduring hate for something that is also part of him is a kind of an entertaining idea.
That is a fantastic idea. I love it. It's like, why does that knight hate this idea so much?
Can you
Well, there
imagine?
was a jackass who got on the throne and told everyone else that it was a bad idea.
Holy fuck! Like, it's really funny. He's making another joke where it's like, if you sat on there and you're just like, "Fuck the show, friends," and then now everybody who sits on the throne after they get off, they're like, "Man, dude, what the
Friends,
fuck?"
fuck.
Oh
How did
man,
anyone ever like that show?
Jennifer Aniston just plays a bitch the entire time. No. Oh, that's
Oh,
fucking
I
good.
love it. There's another story about an inquisitor who he and his retinue hide themselves away in stasis freezers for 100 years to escape detection.
100 years,
And
Jesus. Well, I guess that's nothing
yeah,
to a
it's
Inquisitor. Well, I guess no. That'd be like
yeah,
20
books
years of a
say.
regular human life, right?
Um, I mean, now
If they're
citizens
not
live a
going
lot
tech
longer.
priest.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty short. I mean, I think for some of the stories, like the Eisenhorn book talks a lot about
Yeah,
characters who look like they're in their 40s but are actually sitting at about 200.
yeah. I'm
Um,
I'm really enjoying
with
those books,
money.
by the way.
Oh, they're the best.
I'm on
I have
book
read those
3.
books dozens of times. I love them so much.
Oh, have you painted Eisenhorn yet?
I have not, but I will show him off here
That is one thing I would.
as a
Oh
gift
shit, he's right there.
for
Nice.
Christmas. Yep, Hitch bought Eisenhorn for me. He's one of my favorite characters in all of the 40,000 universe. Even through all the decades that I didn't play, I read the books. And this he is phenomenal. This is a beautiful little miniature. This is actually probably the best resin miniature that I have ever seen. My elder ones do not compare to this, but they probably haven't been resculpted since I was a wee lad. And so, but this is a really beautiful model. I'm sad that Barbara Sater isn't on him.
Yeah, I was kind of interested that Barbara Sater. Uh,
Everything else is correct except for the scroll tube. Like he has the bolt gun that he got from the Space Marine librarian. He
yep.
has his
After he
staff that's
lost his
sword.
first one in the very first book, sticking it into the mouth of a chaos person, blowing their brains
Yep.
out.
He has his staff, which is built around his own skull. Well,
Wait,
a impression of his own skull, I should say, not
I
his
was gonna say
actual skull.
I haven't gotten that part. Um,
Oh, okay. It's in the second,
really?
third. I don't know.
It should be
And then the
third
scroll
because
tube, which I assume is from the second one, but he really needs to have his sword.
yeah, the sword missing was one thing I was kind of curious about because he goes through all of the like the different fighting styles that he learns with the sword, and it's kind of one of the more detailed aspects of the book. Ferris
Yeah,
Will,
it definitely is.
he's sad that his joke was a little too slow, but he's like, to take it to the extreme, as far as Back to the Throne, if you really needed to take a shit and you thought, I'll just do the Throne's Judgment, it'll take 2 seconds before I head to the space crapper.
Oh no!
Then everybody from that point out is going to be trying to hold a crap the entire time they're killing Xenos, and
Every
that's
time I
fucking
sit down to pilot this
hilarious.
stupid knight, I gotta take a shit. Damn it, Randall!
Damn it! Fucking Randall. Why didn't you just poop beforehand? Like, can you imagine? Like, there's these two people before you go in. Like, all right, have you gone to the bathroom? Have you clear your mind? Is there anything do you have an ex-girlfriend who's on your mind? We have to make sure, absolutely sure, you're not gonna fuck this up for the rest of everybody
I
forever.
know, because we're never gonna get away from it. Oh, that one
um,
is falling in space too, but I'll just hold him for a second.
Interesting. So it looks like the he has something that's supposed to connect to like the backpack there, or is that
He's
not
also on his
gonna?
other hand, so if you were a quick eyes there, you would have seen. What do you do here? Oh, it's this arm.
This is one of the problems
Um,
with getting the assembly line is occasionally you'll be like, oh, this goes here. Nope. I did it with
yep.
my aggressors and forgot to put a guy's head on, so I just had to like slip it in there afterwards. It was he looks okay, but it's like one of those like, oh fuck, please fit in there, get in your home, go to your home.
Yes, I think I'm actually gonna let these sit for a bit longer because they are not gluing as fast as my hasty hands would like. Um, yeah, it's interesting actually. These two are the gunners for the weapons platform, and they've been modeled a little bit differently. So one of them has this. Actually, no, I can just take the guy who's actually assembled. I have to show a piece here. Um,
That's funny. Ferris Will said he's been there literally with the same model.
so this is what he has right there. It's kind of
Oh,
this
interesting.
bone-shaped piece that connects to his back, and then the other interesting one has kind of this extra telescopic sight, and then this visor on him. So these are the two models. And you can see I put their grenade packs on them, but with this guy, just in order to get the piece around his waist, it just looks like he's just carrying a dildo around. So I don't often put these shaped grenades on them.
Oh my god,
Um,
you can't unsee it.
Nope, you'll never unsee it. He's like,
That's not great.
you there, I'm gonna fuck you.
That's terrifying. A fuck you grenade, like literally, like that's
Yeah,
and
yeah.
talk
Well,
about intimidation factor.
it's the Archer grenade. He's just gonna jam it up your ass and walk away.
um.
Damn it, damn it.
So, oh, did you? Oh, you were looking to switch up position on him.
Yeah, I'm. My brain is incapable of doing things with my mouth and my hand at the same time. And make of that what you will.
You're either amazing or bad at sex. No, is that what we're going for?
Just means I have to be a little bit more thorough.
That's the best thing you
I
can
hope my
be.
wife has gone to bed because if she's watching this, she's gonna be mad at me.
She'll. I have a feeling she'll be more entertained than mad. She'll look at you, she'll laugh and be like, and shake her head and be like, if you're gonna go into detail, go into good detail. I
I
feel
don't
like
know. I
is
think
what
she'd
she
be
would
like, I
say.
don't know you. I'm never appearing on your show.
That is the far more likely option, if I'm honest.
That's what I can do here is I can also show off these things, which I've started to buy for all of the armies. I got these for Ty's Space Marines as well as a gift.
Yeah, actually, I
Um,
got them right here.
yeah, the
These
data
things are
cards. I am
amazingly
a
good.
huge fan of these. I think I'm more of a fan of these because of another big board game we have called Brimstone. But having these that you can actually look at and put on the board and stack up is
Uh,
fantastic. Plus,
it's
the two different psychic powers you can get for
I have to
schools for
admit,
the
I was skeptical about them because I got one for my Chaos Space Marines, but like before I had a chance to actually play a game with them, Cats knocked them off into water. It was a whole like just instantly ruined. And I was like, oh well, fuck it, I'll just use the book. It's all the same information. But I really do enjoy having the things just super handy as far as whatever stratagems and everything you're using. Like I have Flamecraft instantly drawn for my salamanders, and just having them all right there and quickly referenceable, so you don't have to just go through everything. Oh, I think we lost Jeff again. Well, we
No,
lost Jeff's
sorry.
hands, but not
This thing
his
is
his face. Are you running out of battery on your phone?
no, no, no. I switched it around to make sure I wasn't missing anything on the other side of
Okay.
the phone, and it
Oh,
kept the
perfect. Okay.
call, but it well, iOS and background tasks. I mean, really,
I mean, really, honestly,
fucking Apple.
but
Honestly, I've had
I
to program these things and fucking stupid.
I was actually because of these, I've been thinking about getting a another data card set for my Chaos Space Marines, which are
I
not a
recommend it. I have
strong
now
army, but
one
I
for all of my armies, and it's very nice.
I gotta admit, like I don't know what it is about Chaos Space Marines, but I got like a soft spot for them, even though if they're not the best army ever.
They're fantastic. I think they're amazing. Oh, is your buddy like, no shit?
No, no, no. He's definitely identified his most beneficial aspect for his army building and everything. He's like, I just weaponize my autism to memorize every stratagem and then scoff at people using them, and that is like the perfect. Like he is that guy who can literally spill off every stratagem. Like whenever I'm playing against him, it's always a learning experience because it's like one of those. I'll be trying to think of something and he'll just know it. He's one of those guys, and so the weaponized autism is a fucking hilarious but accurate way
Savant.
to
Just say savant, and it'll even
savant
be centric to
better.
40K. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, there you
I
go.
just got these the other day, which I'm very
Oh my
happy
god,
with.
those look just difficult as fuck to read.
These are my themed Dire Avenger dice, which I didn't realize there were so many. But I actually bought the Reapers and the Howling Banshee, so now I have a bunch of Eldar dice. But
Oh nice.
I kind of love them.
I've been trying to find good salamander dice. I found some decent flame themed dice on Amazon. I think there were like some Chess X or something like that. But
Oh, guess what these are too? Yeah, these are Chessex. I believe they're Chessex, or are they Games Workshop? I
those
don't know.
look Games Workshop just by
They look
the
pretty Games
intricate designs.
Workshop-y.
But like I'm one of those people. No no no. Is that the right arm? No, I'm just kidding. Um,
Yes.
but I do like having dice appropriate to my army. Like I did buy Alpha Legion dice for my Chaos. And I probably will end up buying either. I'm kind of torn. I would love to find some, and it's really hard. I haven't found them yet. But if I could get like a brass dice for my salamanders, I think that would be fucking cool.
Amazon has a lot of metal dice, but of course they have the
I
problem of
haven't
being
found any in
expensive.
the right sizing. Is the thing.
Yeah. Actually, one thing that we were talking about before is a little change of pace
It's
here while
true.
I'm listening to dry. Actually, what do I want it to be? Kind of like that.
Yeah, actually, instead of the green and red Varus, I was thinking of going with the. There's these ones I found that have like this nice flame theme. They're like kind of a resin that is or not a resin. I don't know what it is, but they kind of
Plastic?
more see through. Where it's this kind of so they look kind of more flame and just are black dots, and I think flame is super appropriate to salamanders because I have a person who has a more than an 8 IQ, but um, those are probably the ones I'll end up getting if I can find them in a smaller size. But yeah, I love things that are easy to contrast. The only thing I'm worried about is getting Christmas dice, with the red and green.
As a little change of pace, actually, one of the things I've been amazed at is how much easier and cheaper it is to get scenery and boards going. Striking Scorpions, once again, I mean, they use the game mats and they use a bunch of different kinds. They have beautiful scenery that their studio paints up, and then on top of that, once they place the scenery on the game mat, they'll go back over with like gravel or flock or all kinds of extra pieces to blend it all together. And I really, really like that.
Wait,
I'm actually going to,
do they flock the mat itself?
yeah, not,
Oh,
pardon me, maybe not flack specifically, but they'll take a lot of that smaller scale,
modeling.
forgive me, a lot of that smaller scale detail that you might, glue down, and they'll spread it around the borders of their terrain pieces and their mat to blend them in. They have great boards, and as I was looking, game mats even for a 4x6 are like $40,
Oh yeah.
and a lot of the new terrain pieces, the that are not Games
Oh,
Workshop,
they just
are like
released an
10, fifteen
amazing.
dollars, and I'm like, wow, those are fantastically, and so I'm
Did
really excited about getting a board going. When I was a kid,
you,
we fucking made it from the ground up.
Did you ever see? Okay, so Games Workshop just released this really awesome new urban warfare terrain pack that has like these fallen statues that look amazing. But at first, Will actually brought up a good point. As far as dice go, readability is a huge aspect, especially from a few feet away. So that way your opponent doesn't feel like you're just glossing over or anything like that. Because part of the things I think a lot of people forget about a lot of games nowadays, whether it be video game, regular game, board game, whatever, is sportsmanship, and readability can actually factor into sportsmanship. So that's a good point, Ferris.
That's very true. That's one thing I like about these dice. They actually have the full written number on there too, so
Yeah,
that's
that
a
was I
very
was
good point.
noticing that. Like, um,
Yeah,
so
it's a very good point.
when building two exact same kits, do you try to make the different units look particular to that? So do you add like more grenades or more options to one and not the other, or do you kind of just go for the best look and just copy it from the previous one?
Really depends on what they are. These are guardians. Um, they're supposed to be the citizen army, so I don't find like a lore specific reason to make them much different. Plus, my two guardian units are probably going to be from different craft worlds. I'm going to
So
paint
just
them
the
up
painting
into
different.
craft world specific detachments. Even if I play one big army list, and they'll just be very colorful. Because one thing I keep forgetting to mention is that one of the main reasons I got into the Eldar this time around in the first place is because of the painting. They have a really nice painting challenge. They've got a lot of big open areas for doing things like Biltan's thorns. Really excited about that. Really looking forward to it. I don't know if you can see here my colors.
Oh wow, that's awesome! You have those mounted on the wall. Like I got to get
Yeah,
myself
my
a.
wife got those for me, and I put them up on the wall, and they are wonderful.
I
So
gotta
all the colors, and then I have these little IKEA bucket things that are hanging off of them that have my brushes and so forth. So
Man, I gotta get
really
a
recommend them.
workspace like yours. That is incredible.
And
Um,
we built this desk too. Cut it out of a big piece of plywood, and then we did a epoxy. This is going to be dangerous.
I think you guys are like the ultimate example of when being a Portland hipster goes absolutely amazingly correctly.
I feel like we've gone beyond it as far as being a Portland hipster because we're good at it, and Portland hipsters kind of suck at whatever they
Well,
do.
I'm saying, yeah, no, that's inarguable. But like, I guess it's basically the if somebody follows the ideals of hipsterism to their logical
Logical
conclusion
conclusion.
rather than just stopping halfway because they got bored. Um, so
That's a good point. Yes.
the craft worlds you're going to be using, which ones are you most interested in? Because you don't have to decide until you paint them.
Right. I'm probably going to represent almost all of them. The one that I was going to start with, which was going to be Ayandin, unfortunately met with a mechanical failure.
What happened?
Essentially, the quick painting technique for Ayandin is they're blue and yellow. They're primarily yellow. So the trick is to prime them with white and then just paint them with yellow. I call it ink because I'm super old school, but the shades or the glosses. And
Yeah.
you get a beautiful glowing yellow. But, I tried to use white primer in cold, wet weather and gave my first unit of Wraith Blades a very nice textured wall spray. And now they're sitting in a bucket of goop to strip them off because fucking A. So I'm not doing white primer anymore. Oh, I've never had it with any other color, so I'm not going to
Hmm.
do Iyanden unless I do the Everland Sunset route and come back up. And anything that has a light color like white, I'm just going to do a multi-coat approach to pull it back up from the black.
Okay.
So I'm not going to worry about that. So of the other craft worlds, Biltan or Baltan, however you pronounce them, I'm never going to pronounce them right. I've given up, years ago, ever even caring about it, and I only care about it when I find that person who's really pedantic about it, and then I say it wrong on purpose over and over again. Um, so
So
Baltan
Jessica
has
Bieltan.
yes, exactly, Jessica. Exactly. They all have their specific rules, but when it comes to like doctrines and rules and cultures, that's one of those things you can just pick and tell your opponent. I really support people who do like my army is exactly what they look like, and I do that in a lot of instances. But if my guys are painted black and I say they're Iyanden, they're fucking Iyanden. Deal with it.
There you go.
So I'm probably gonna do the Baltan. They're predominantly green and white, and they have this beautiful black thorn pattern. And I believe they have the heart. Um, yes, it's only one example of it way down there. of the thorns wrapped around the heart. Um, so they'll
Um,
be really fun to paint.
where? Sorry. Where's that? Can I see the?
Transfer again.
Yeah.
So it's
Oh, here. Let me
that
switch over
one.
to the cam. So, oh, the heart with the barbed wire.
Thorns. Yeah. So
Okay.
that's Bale Tan's sigil, and so that white and the black thorns and the green, it'll be your Salamander's green, except if you started with the Warpstone and came up.
Mm.
So that'll be a fun color to paint. Um,
I
I
do.
believe that their craft world power is Sword Wind. They can fire. They get like rerolls or something like that for their shuriken guns.
Oh, that's awesome. And so as far as the ones you're building now, I notice you're waiting last to put the heads on last. Is there any reason, or is it because of kind of that's one of the easiest things? I know when I'm modeling, the easiest thing to change between two similar models is where the head is looking or what the head is doing. Is that kind of where you're
Definitely.
waiting for that, or is it just one of those
I could
last
say
because?
I could easily say that I do the heads last because I want to see where the hands are, so and the body and the hips are, so I can position the head. I think subconsciously I start with the legs because I can glue them down first and don't have to hold them, and so I build it up from the foundation because I can stick a piece on and then let it sit.
Is this kind of
Um,
more? Do you think that maybe your arthritis come into play, or is it like your mentality?
it's my mentality. I've always been pretty economical. The way that I played sports and stuff like that, I've always been told that I played with very little wasted energy. And I'm not claiming anything magical about that. It's just the way that I am, I think, about some things like this, where I'll just build them up from a place where I can go do something else in the meantime while I wait for something to dry.
Okay.
I'll do it with the bigger war walkers and stuff like that too. Is their hips and legs and feet will be the first thing in. Then I'll position their upper body and let it sit, and then I'll put their arms on and let them sit, and then I'll let their put their head on, and that'll finish out the pose.
Perfect. And so as far as like the worst to put together in this army, as you're putting on these heads, what has been the most frustrating? And I'm guessing it's going to be resin, but what's been the most frustrating model so far for you?
Um,
Oh, and you've been complimented on your hydration as you have three water bottles within easily viewable distance when you were showing off your workshop.
if only I was drinking them a bit more effectively.
Hey, you're
Um,
better than me. I'm the guy drinking a vodka martini while streaming, and this is
oh
my
my god,
second one.
I was trying to build these guys last night after my second Dark and Stormy, and I was getting like irritated with myself because I'm like, I can't see it.
Where you're just blinking like 17 times, like, okay, nope.
I'm like, no, I was like, my eyes are
Wow.
seeing everything. My brain is not seeing anything. Um, yes, so this is also coffee. I've had predominantly coffee all day today too, but um, oh, so the other craft worlds. So definitely do Bael'Tan. Definitely going to do a few Ulthwa. I think that especially the Spirit Warriors with the black highlighted
Yeah.
armor and the white helm will look really, really good. A Laytok for the blues and so forth. Definitely not an Ultramarine blue, even though I had to buy the Macridge blue undercoat
Wait,
because
how do you
fucking
say it?
Ultramarines. I say Macridge. They
Macridge?
now say it Macragge.
I was gonna say I've always read it as McCrag, but like, have they changed? And you're actually one of the few people who've been following the lore long enough. Did they change the spelling of it, or is it just one as you read it as more of a Scottish pronunciation than it was originally intended?
Honestly, I want to say that one of the very early Games Workshop games pronounced it that way. It also has the double GE,
Hmm.
and I am not a very good pronunciator. I have a great vocabulary, but half those words I don't say right because I get them out of books. I never took a class in school
Yeah,
that really went about how you pronounce things effectively. So I'll have 10 times the vocabulary and say half of them wrong
yeah,
because of that. But once again, I had a friend tell me like you should be applauded for having the vocabulary, not getting and thinking things in context.
that's
So I do
funny.
say Macrage or Macridge. I think if it was Macragge, it would not have the E. I don't know. Once again, pronunciation with this in particular, like
That's the bitch of any fantasy novel. It's really funny. Ferris Bueller is
yes,
just like tips fedora McCrag.
yes, exactly.
That's
So
horrible but
definitely do
amazing.
the lay talk. The blue and yellow will look really good on the table. I have a very
Damn.
large contingent of wave serpents or vipers and riders coming. So they're all going to be same hand,
Now
red.
you were mentioning you're up to 3,000 points. Like that's a
Yeah, this
all
is
day fucking game, right? Okay, so this
yeah,
is this is which one?
this is same hand, the red. And this actually, I'm going to paint them opposite, but this is the Bale Tan colors.
Oh, so green with a white head.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with the white head. Like I said, because I'm not going to fuck around with the white primer anymore. It's just where I am right now in the particular time of year and the climate. Like I'm going to have difficulty with using
Well,
it, and I
it
don't want to do it by hand.
it looks like they have some gold highlights, which could be really, really fun and really nice with the golds or with the greens that you're working
Mhm.
with. So actually, I don't think that's a altogether bad decision.
Um, let's see. And then of course the Aspect Warriors are a massive multicolored spectrum. I mean, Dark Reapers are going to be the blacks, Dire Avengers are going to be deep blues. They're all going to match. Like all of the Fire Dragons are going to be leveled up or highlighted up into their oranges and their yellows and so forth. And going through those armor plates is going to be a lot of fun and getting those
Yeah.
bright colors in.
For now, let's get dive back into building since we're kind of looking at this. Uh, we've got these two looking really good. They're probably nice and solidified. Can we kind of take a look at what are they holding? Like what are, they kind of look more like a command unit where they're like kind of telling this weapon thing what to do. Correct? Or
Yes, that's exactly what they are. These two are kind of the modeled gunners for this heavy weapons platform back here. Um, and so he has the this bow-shaped telescoping item, which I would probably rationalize it as something akin to like a controller for a quadricopter.
hmm.
And his partner over here has
And
a
by quadricopter, most people will know them as drones.
drones, yes, and he has this visor gauntlet, and he also, and I will glue it on right now, has this kind of telescopic backpack scope that fits on him. Let me
So he
bring this
probably
back.
uses the scope to see through the visor to give him give the other guy an update of what's going on. Oh, it fell
That's right.
off. Of what's going on and where to direct the
Exactly.
dronic weapon.
And once again, the tabletop, I don't think it actually has any impact. It's definitely going to be simply a visual
Yeah.
storytelling item, and that's why I'm trying to actually pose their arms and stuff in kind of a fun way, is I want them to kind of tell a little story.
Okay.
Much better on that, I believe, is this guy.
I was interesting with your the expansive bits box you're getting. Is there anything that you're thinking of adding to his base to kind of more add it to the story of this particular model, or do
Funnily
you
enough,
like
he came with something to put on his base.
what
Not
is
only did he
this
come
thing?
with a modeled base, which I was very impressed with, he came with this piece of like Eldar half-buried architecture. Um,
So he'd be like reclaiming a craft world or something from like a fallen Slanesh,
yeah,
uh,
striding the
something like that.
ruins. And there's a few of these, like this guy over here, which is the second Warwalker I put together today. He also has this kind of textured, shaped
Ooh,
rune on
interesting.
him as
Now, is
well.
that
So
that clear piece the part you're going to put over as like the dome, or is that something you're thinking of actually putting in the base?
yes, these guys actually have a cockpit.
Oh, that's badass. Um,
So because it's clear and I want to retain that, although I have seen some really beautiful painted armies where they painted this from the back, and if you've ever looked at like a storefront window, the glass, they paint it from the back and it looks really
mhm.
nice. People have done it with this too and painted like a
No,
gold, so you have like this golden cockpit. So I'm keeping it separate so I can prime it.
interesting. So it's fully painted not to be see through anymore, or do you paint it with like the as you call them the washes or the inks so that they kind of more dye it a color?
That would be interesting. It wouldn't stick very well, but I guess if you build it up into the corners and stuff, that actually would be interesting.
Hmm.
So this guy's been modeled to kind of tell a little bit more of a story. So this is more of my Ghost Wraith Blade support Wraith Lord. So he has the Ghost Glaive sword on him. He also has the one heavy weapon I can give him that does not qualify as a heavy weapon, so he can move and fire it.
Hmm.
And he also is equipped with flamers to allow him. And so he is looking down his gun arm, where his scatter laser are pointed down, and he is kind of eyeing it. So if you imagine a target he's looking at with disregard, he's about to get shot to pieces.
Interesting way of putting it. Disregard is probably the perfect way, though. So,
Whereas
would
this
you
guy, which
consider?
God, I love his like the
Oh,
ability to model one of his heavy weapons as a rifle. That was a beautiful, beautiful little addition for that model.
completely agree. And I like that you put the tabard bottom on the more sword oriented. Where it's so it feels like one is kind of more into of um I feel like the sword models that come to more honor based, more ritualistic, where the other one's like I've got a is more practical, more I'm going to shoot you with this and I'm going to do all of the destruction I can. Like, so the mentality of maybe the souls going into them are completely different, but might have the same results in the end.
Yeah, I was considering they give you these additional banners to layer on, and so he actually has this giant metal cod piece, which is now covered up by the gun, anyways. But I was considering hanging some of these shorter banners
Oh, that's
between his leg. I actually would love to hang them from the weapon, but I don't really think that the Eldar are that kind of
well,
race.
the thing about it, the funny thing
Um,
about it with the collective memory is like you could have something so old that they could be into that. Apparently, Ferris thinks my salamanders are gonna wreck your junk. I'm gonna kill your everything with this. So I'll take that
Ty
vote of
likes to
confidence.
mention that a lot too. He always describes his units working at maximum potential, which
I don't know
I
what you're
thought was
talking about.
fun. That these guys are going to charge in here and they were going to wreck you. I'm like, I still have to roll some dice.
And that's
Well,
why
that's
salamanders
actually
take the dice out of the equation
there you
for the
go.
most
Yes.
part.
I can't. Well, I think the onus is more on me with this particular army. I am looking for more of the synergistic effect of like, getting a unit and putting a couple beneficial psychic powers on him and setting up that charge with the Wave Serpent to eat the Overwatch and things like that to make those
Hmm.
charges hit. As far as just, a straight up gun line, no, I don't think that the Eldar would be as effective with that. One thing I learned in like I said, the game we played was the first time I played a game in 26 years. So I don't think Rusty even really gets close to how I am as far as a player goes. But one thing I
Well,
found out was
I
definitely
mean,
that his models
when
were tougher than I thought, and I wasn't getting the really powerful units where they needed to be.
well, and not only that, when the game goes through 5 editions in the meanwhile, I mean,
Yeah, it's a much different game. It's a much faster game. As I mentioned to Hitch earlier, I was really worried that the new streamlined rules would make it less tactically intensive. Most battle reports were like move, shoot, charge, fight, see who wins, and although I'm sure you could be very reductionist and say every game is like that, I was really looking for a bit more of that kind of technical side, and I think that's one of the things that also got me kind of hooked playing the Eldar is that you need to position things where they need to be and use them how they need to be used. Otherwise, they're
well,
useless.
and I also
Um,
think one nice thing about the Eldar, it seems like they're more clear of where they need to be. Like one of the benefits of not being a Swiss Army knife is that you're more clear on your use on the battlefield. So that'll be kind of interesting when we clash these together and find out exactly
Yeah, it will
what
be very
happens.
fun. Definitely, and we're going to be using that tabletop simulator, and we've both got a hold of a lot of the different pre-constructed army sets that we can play because we're 500 miles away from each other. We can't
Yeah.
really lay things out on a table right now, so we'll be able to practice and play tactically. And when we play together, we try and help each other. We're both
Actually,
still learning, and we both want to like how is this tactic going to play out the best way?
since Ferris is watching, would you be interested in seeing Ferris kind of teach me more? If I could do a live stream with like an overhead cam, and do kind of like a battle report, would you be interested in watching, see how my salamanders evolve going against Ferris with his immensity of armies and wonderful tactics that I learned a lot from? Would you be
Yeah, that would be
interested
really
in seeing
cool.
something like that?
Yeah, I think that would be really cool, and I think it would be really cool to really, the way that you and I played, where we sat down and went, well, I need to do this, and then we both kind of looked at it and said, well, you could move him here, or you could do this, or you could use this. Seeing a game like that from someone who's a lot more experienced with the tabletop side. Obviously, when it comes to lore, I've got huge amounts of that, but like I said, I've only played a handful of games in my entire life, and the last one was almost a lifetime ago.
No, the
Um,
last one was just a few weeks ago.
it was
You
like a
can't say
lifetime
that
ago.
anymore.
Yes, with an army that I definitely was very excited about, using, which is so funny because my my Tyrannifex could see your tank.
It
I
could.
just I didn't want that to be how we started the game.
Dude, I was you know me. I was like, "Okay, that's fair. You got it." And like you rolled so well. The thing is I didn't think to do the reroll on the explosion. So it might not have been such a huge,
Well, that's what I mean. That was the very first like turn or
but like
second, my first turn to the first game that we played with those armies,
but in a
and
game
so I
that
just
usually lasts 4 turns. Okay, so next time when it's All right, fuck.
I'll be honest.
We're gonna have to
Look,
plan. We're gonna
you're,
have to
you're
plan you
right.
a vacation. We're gonna have to plan you, and this will you can get it through Candace by explaining it this way because it'll be really great for my channel and for making videos. But we're going to do a. We're just gonna have to plan you a vacation for my benefit. This is all for me. As you consider it my birthday present, which is coming up in April. So
That's in
anytime
April.
between
Yep.
now and then, just write it off. But is where you're gonna come down, and then we're going to run a bunch of stuff.
You have to get some terrain and a table because
Agreed.
it's a huge thing. Here's the story with what happened. So it was this game we played. We've been like building shit and playing and talking about it. We
For
finally sat down with
two
my
days,
Tyranic.
like I'd
Yeah.
been building additions to my Primaris Marines, which are the salamanders that have been shown off, and
Mhm.
I had convinced Jeff to take back his Tyranids, and
And so
then
they had none of the new big models. So I went to the hobby store and dropped a shitload
some
of
money.
money, some money, yes, a whole bunch of the really large models. And so we had finally sat down. We'd set it up. Ty had his first turn, and then I walked. I was standing, in line of sight to his repulsor tank, which is I kind of helped talk him into buying at the hobby store. It's a great model. I
It's
think
true.
it's really,
It's
good
a
for his army.
beautiful model, and
Yeah, and I had the rupture cannon on the Tyrannofex, and when I rolled his, double shot without moving, I blew the tank to pieces. I hit like
he
20
got
some wounds on it.
it was ridiculous. It was 23 wounds or
23
something
wounds with the
stupid.
rupture cannon.
Like it was nearly maximum damage you can do with the unit.
Yeah, yeah. I only missed maximum damage by a couple digits.
Oh,
Blew the tank to pieces. He rolled for it. The tank blew up, and he had
oh.
surrounded the tank with, I
It
would
was the
say, at
middle
least
of
2/4 of his
everything.
army.
Yeah.
And so I kind of sat back and I went, I don't think he can see the tank. And so we transferred everything to his dreadnought, blew the dreadnought off the table, and kept playing as usual. Um, Neither of us were interested in winning that game. We were trying to play and have fun. It seemed more fun to just be like, eh,
So for the
I don't want to
record,
start the game out this way.
first wheel is like as far as the table goes, we can either play first wheel has an amazing table with a full battle
Oh,
mat
cool.
and stuff that we can use, or he'd be we can also talk to I forget his name, the guy at the Games Workshop shop. He's more than open to let us use his table and stuff, and I'm sure he'd be fine with us streaming and everything as well. But other than that, he's like, that is disgusting for a rupture cannon. He loves it. You got him rock hard to be honest.
I was very pleased. I don't think neither Ty or I really had any idea that the model was that the unit was capable of that.
It was
It was a lot of fun. I
crazy.
went the rest of the game unsuccessfully hurting that tank the entire time, but that was
Mm,
hugely fun.
that's not true. The one term you focused everything on that one captain, Marcellus
Oh, that's right.
Persson,
I blew the captain out because he had gotten exposed,
and
and
he would have been so good against your army because he can
yeah,
attack every model with 1 inch of him.
hmm
So like
and then
when you charged in, he would have just been like step, 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 step,
and the
step, step,
psychic power of the Tyranids. Also, I
step.
love. I almost went for Tau, for this particular army, but I already have Astra Militarum, so I already have that big
Gun line.
mechanized gun line. My wife helped me pick that up. She's like, "You already have a gun line," and I wanted the psychic power. That's like one of my favorite parts of this entire game. The Tyrannids were very fun. I mean, the mortal wounds that army can spit out
Oof.
and I needed them. I mean, it was very
Yeah.
tough to break through those
Well,
salamanders. They were very difficult,
hell,
especially
even
with the
that
fucking intercessors. Oh,
hell that deep struck cataphractory terminators. You thought you were just gonna wipe them off the board,
I
and
thought I
you were
was
having
gonna wipe them out with a big
real
unit of Gene
trouble.
Stealers, and I forgot the reroll with the Brewlord right there too. But yeah,
Yeah,
they
it's true.
that was not happening.
Yeah, well, the two up
Um,
save, like if you don't have anything to nullify that, it's fucking hard.
this army does because that one hurt. The other one that would be really fun in that game is that I had pulled up behind his army. What
Oh,
6?
Tyrannifex 14. No,
No,
it
it
was
was the
20.
Trigon.
The
It
Trigon.
was the
That's right.
Trigon, 12 or 16 Gene Stealers and the two
16.
Lictors.
Yeah. That was three
Failed
lictors.
every single charge. The
Yeah.
two Lictors got into the Intercessors. They were outside of range of the Flamers. Didn't make any difference. The Intercessors ripped them. And I know Lictors aren't supposed to be very good right now. The Intercessors wrecked them so terribly.
It wasn't even
That
funny.
it was just like,
Well,
hmm,
I also made all of my saves for the like. I think there was one wound that made through, made the save, and then the power gauntlets just. It
just
basically
wrecked 'em.
visually it was you running in and me reaching out with just crushing their heads in my power
Yeah.
fist. It was
I
crazy.
was like, "Oh, man," and I learned in that game too, like 9 inches is a long way for a charge. I think one of the things
Yeah,
that I was thinking of was in the olden days is that the olden days,
dude,
is that
literally
you
can
know, the
olden days it. You know
I
that's
really
funny.
can. It's like when I have memories larger than like 10 years, I get really upset. Anyways, the movement
You
speed
realize
of
we're
a
getting
unit,
close to 10 years will be our friendship.
I
We're getting
know, I
close to that.
know.
Isn't that
It's when
nuts?
Michael texts me and says that my first Warcraft character is of legal drinking age.
For the record, he texts us before he texts you, and he's like, "Guess what I'm gonna do?"
Oh, I can
Because
remember that one.
he wants us to be in on
He'll
the
be like,
joke,
"Yeah,
and
your first Warcraft character is a legal adult." Ah, son of a bitch.
right? Can you believe how bad they've screwed
Um,
that up? Sorry, continue on what you were
oh
saying.
yeah, that's a different story.
That's a
But
whole
back
nother
yeah,
discussion.
back in the olden days, the movement speed of a unit played into how far they could charge.
Yeah.
Which, as far to my knowledge, is now doesn't matter anymore. Like I could have a Hemlock Wraith fighter move 60, 70 inches in a turn and still only have a 2d6 charge.
Yeah.
Which I understand is for the streamlining of the game. It also adds a little of randomness because you don't want a super fast army
Well,
always doing.
I think we actually showed one of the big reasons for it was because of the range of Overwatch. So if you could charge from whatever distance, and I could always Overwatch you with those flamers, it would change the aspect of charging and the tactical
Mm.
thing of trying to go from a
So if I could
longer
charge 50
distance.
inches, you'd never be able to shoot at it.
Well,
That
no,
makes
even
sense.
or if I was always allowed to Overwatch because I would always see you. If you're coming from 60 inches away,
Hmm.
logically I'd have time to see you and get ready to fucking flame Overwatch. And so I think it's interesting addition to the game of giving it to the okay, you've made it this far, but can you make it the rest of the way? Do you have
Yeah.
the courage to charge into these things? And I think it adds kind of like a more fluffy aspect to the game.
Yeah, it's definitely one that takes a bit more planning and a bit more acceptance that, it's a bit more random because 9 inches on a 2d6 is a long way. You really have to plan out, the either the brood powers or like what is it, matchless agility, the Eldar card that lets you get, an extra set of range.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
definitely something to think about next time.
Path of the Berserker, the corn stuff is really good for getting you that reroll on the charges, which is can be
Hmm.
so important.
Yeah,
Overwatch is
definitely.
yuck. I agree, Ferris.
I definitely,
I've
I
lost
definitely need to
more.
try
I think
that.
I've lost more units to Overwatch than anything else when I'm playing my Chaos Army.
Yeah, that is a that's why I have some Howling Banshees coming. I know. When I say I know, it means I've read. I've read that they're not really great as far as killing things, but when it comes to tar pitting, like Howling Banshees are amazing because they can't be overwatched and they are difficult to, walk away from.
I
So
have
that
that.
will be helpful.
I had that same theory with my oh my god, I'm forgetting the name. Astral Claws? No, that's a chapter name.
Warp
Xinjian
Talons?
Night, the Warp Talons. Thank you. To get through because one of my ideas was I had Warp Talons so they would fall down, charge, you know, tar pit you, and it did not work out super amazing. As far as building these things, let's hope we get you through this one box setting, which is going to take 7 hours. For
Oh
the
no, that
record,
I'm not worried about getting them done. In fact, building the Guardians are not very fun. I kind of, as we knew would happen, I didn't hold back building some of the nicer and more fun models. But what I'll do, finish this unit up, and then the next time we do this, because I hope we do this again, because
oh
this
yeah,
is
this is
so
an
much fun.
amazingly fun stream for me, and
Yeah, I'm glad to
um,
hear it.
I love the idea of talking about like tactics and lore and everything. And I'm sure Ferris is sitting around thinking about when I do this because I'm definitely at this point probably gonna do one with him as if he's down, so you can kind of experience his view of the game and everything. And I think it's gonna be very interesting because of yeah, not to be like worried about it, but your age differences and the perception of the game is going to be very different from both of you, and I think it's going to be wildly
So,
interesting.
a question for your friend: is he a fluff player or a cheese player? Oh, there
Ferris,
was a
as soon
hesitation.
as well, no, I don't want to answer for him. But as soon as
Oh, we
he
have to wait for the
gets,
delay to kick
yeah, as soon as the delay gets to him, I'll let him answer for himself and let you know what he says. He says, "Leading question."
I only gave you two options. I guess that qualifies as a leading question.
Okay, how would you describe your play style, Ferris? That's really funny, by the way.
Okay. Another friend that Ty and I have from a long time ago, apparently is a very much a cheese player, and I am very much of, and Ty and I believe too is also a very fluff player. So we, like, in my opinion, like I don't ever want to play against someone like that. And as you can tell from that whole story with the rupture cannon, like I don't want the game to be over in the first turn. I don't want to tactically dominate. I want something to play cinematically, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. So Ferris Wheel says he doesn't really believe in the idea of a cheese player. He believes playing to tactics is, but he also believes playing the army that plays to the tactics. If I know him, and so he's basically, if you're going to build an army that is one of the more powerful armies in this, as far as the answer goes between cheese versus fluff, he probably
It's
is.
cheese.
Well, it's not. I would actually knowing him, it's not necessarily cheese, but if he builds a cheese army, it's a fluffy cheese army. Like he'll keep the fluff
So it's cheese
and build
whiz.
it. He'll build it to win.
Cheese whiz in a can. Fluffy cheese.
It's built to win. Like so it's one of those. Why build an army if you building an army to win, but also keeping the fluff, I guess. But it's
Mm.
basically, if there's ways to win that are easier than others, and
What I
why
end up doing is
lose?
I
But
pick the fluff that I like, and then I find out how to use them the best I can.
I will say he's one of the few people I've known. Like he went actually to Sacramento for a tournament, and he won with chaos. So I'm like, dude's just good.
Nice.
Like I cannot make chaos. Well, I've won one chaos game, and that's probably my inexperience as more than anything. But to answer your question. So on these guys, how important would this particular unit you're building? Is it going to be more of like cannon fodder or
I don't know if there really is a cannon fodder part of the Eldar army. I think that they're not quite as elite as say, Grey Knights or Custodes or anything like that. But they definitely are one of these armies where they're not like my Astra Militarum,
yeah?
where despite the fact that I have important parts of the army, I really don't feel like losing any piece of it is a big deal to me. I could lose the general, I could lose the commissar, I could lose a good unit or a good tank, and just there would still be a solid core to the army. Tyranids too. I mean, the cannon fodder
Yeah.
for them. Obviously, the Termagants and Hormagaunts are just there to get in the way and stop the Overwatch on the charges. Um, I would say that in this particular army, the Guardians would be the ones that I would be the least concerned about. They're definitely the fill this hole, be reliable, do things that I need you to do.
Okay.
Um,
Oh,
so I
interesting.
wouldn't. I would. That's how I would treat them. And this army is definitely built to be more of a shooter
Okay.
army. I really like the shooting phase. I really like the psychic phase, and that's definitely where this army sits. Really, the only hand-to-hand
Really
combat I
comfortably.
have a minimum strength, Howling Banshees. I have a 5 unit of Wraithblades with Ghost Axes who are sitting in the strip off the shitty white primer bucket right now. And not really much more. I have some swooping hops coming, but I don't really believe that they're much of a close combat. My army is really meant to be psychically and tactically a distance army.
Okay. It looks like I might have explained Ferris's response a little incorrectly. He's saying he doesn't believe that cheese really. He believes it's. He doesn't believe it's cheesy to play to an army's strength. He also doesn't believe that fluff means playing an army weakly. So that's where he was a little uncomfortable with the question.
Oh, I agree with
Um,
those. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I agree with those completely. So we should actually define things here.
Yeah,
So
he's saying if something is super badass in the fluff and just doesn't work on the table because of some failing in the rules, it's it some failing in the rules or some aspect of how the rules work, it kind of ruins the unit over time. Like
Wraith Titan
Grey
or the
Knights are
Wraith
the
Knight.
the example that he has. He's like they're mondo insane in the fluff, and it'll never be reflected on the table. So I think that's why he was saying, as far as between his fluff and on table, he says it ruins it for him trying to if he were to play Grey Knights on the table with how badass they are in the fluff, it's never going to be the same in on the table. So it kind of leads him. I gathering that it leads him to play more armies that are just more fun. He looks to have fun on the table without
Well,
ruining
here's
his
the
idea
reason
of the
why I didn't get
fluff.
the army that came with the Wraith Knight. Wraith Knight's a fantastic model. It's one of the only Eldar super heavies. I don't really count Forge World here unless I quote them specifically. Unfortunately, it is a bullet magnet that can't take it. I've seen it get blown apart before it even gets to do anything. And that's just, I mean, I have Knights, and Knights, they're actually fairly tough for what they are, whereas the
Yeah.
Wraith Knight, doesn't really have the firepower and doesn't really have the durability and does not stand up on the board.
Okay.
Um, but I definitely like I would play a unit that is terrible just because I love them so much and just kind of take that as understanding. But let's define that. So
Well,
cheese is really the
hold
people
on.
who build a tournament list just to abuse, the rules where they have like 7 characters and 6 of them are Caluxus assassins because you can't shoot them. That kind of shit is bullshit cheese to me. I mean, that is absolutely worst thing
So
ever.
as far as like the big knight unit that you were talking about, so like even though it would be fluffy to bring one as far as like an elite force or everything, you'd never bring that because it's just a
Because it's
bullets.
$140.
Jesus, what? How many
So there
points is
has to
it?
be a practical side. I believe he's that much. There has to be a practical side to it as well,
Okay, that makes sense.
because I have to spend the money to get it. So I'm trying to think of a good example. Um,
It's funny. I was actually looking at the
I don't have one
Salamander's
in
hero,
front of me.
who's a dreadnought, and he's this really awesome unit.
Oh, the Turbogon. Turbogon is not good.
What? He seemed
Turbogun is
pretty
not a
good.
good unit. Yeah, but according to 1d4chan, it's not a good unit. It doesn't really do anything. You're not really going to get much out of the Termagants it spawns, and when it dies, it kills all the Termagants anyways. So, but it's such a cool model and a cool
Wait.
idea that it's on the board. She, it,
Okay, so he
they,
says he likes stuff like that, but it has to be tempered with expectation and reality of playing the game. Um, which he had to learn the hard way, being a long-term chaos player. I can
yeah,
understand where he's coming from now. This is all starting to make sense. He loves Mauler fiends and stuff like that, but being a long-term chaos fan and player, he has to balance that good stuff with undercost stuff to balance it out. So I guess
mm.
you kind of agree. You more on the
It sounds like
side
we're all on
of
the same
fluff.
page
It's
here.
like
Yeah,
between the spectrum, chaos is a great place to say it because like we all agree you have to take chaos in order to make a list that's even to be fun on the table. Um,
yeah, and that is a
but
everyone loves a Chaos Army. I mean, that's just so cool.
Exactly, but you have to have them, even though they're not fluffy, to a Chaos Space Marine army, and so I think that's so having a list that works is he says is important. So he's basically play to fluff as much, but don't sacrifice your army's effectiveness to play to fluff. So I think we can all kind of agree on that. I know I do.
No, no, I think we've beat that dead horse to death. We're all on the same page. But it's actually interesting too. I started collecting the Astra Militarum before I knew that they were insane.
They are so good right
Um,
now, in my
I didn't
opinion.
know, and it actually was one of the reasons I think I kind of shied away when we were playing, and went, oh, maybe I'll do this more of a Tyrannus right now because let's take Super Smash Brothers.
Yeah,
If you say this is the best character in the game, I won't play it. And
you
I'm
are.
not trying to be like prideful or say I'm better. I just usually don't. I want to play the weird one. When they were like, yeah, like Solomon Grundy is weird in this, and I was like, I'm gonna play that guy. Or Mew too. I was like, I'm gonna play that guy.
See, you're
And
lucky.
so,
I usually end up finding like in fighting games, not other games, but I usually end up accidentally finding and enjoying whoever is super OP. Like, and it happens to me so many times, it's ridiculous. Like, I've in hell Injustice, I was like, oh, dude, the Flash, he's one of my favorite characters, and then he's OP as fuck in the
yeah, yeah.
first.
And I like playing Solomon Grundy because he was tough. But anyways, I'm not saying that makes me better than anyone. It just happens to be like we all lean in a certain direction or anything too.
For the
But
record, Ferris is like, he says there's nothing wrong with any playstyle like that in his opinion. It's like he's really excited though about Astra Militarum. They finally work like they're supposed to. He loves Imperial Guard and I think they're great and loves that they're
mhm.
finally strong and where they should be fluff
And
wise in my
the
opinion.
order system is great fluff, great
Oh,
tabletop.
it
Mm,
really is. It's brutal tabletop, but it's hard to argue against how fluffy and great they are. Oh,
yeah, yeah.
and Ferris, check this out. So here's my salamander so far. I've got one unit over here, but I've got Vulcan Histan, which is going to be probably not painted before Saturday for sure. But um, I've got Vulcan. I've got a Repulsor. I'm committed to this new salamander list. But I bet you can't tell which of these guys I painted and which ones
Oh,
Jeff
don't listen
painted.
to him. He did an amazing job. I think
No,
your
no,
salamanders look
I was,
beautiful.
I was complimenting myself. I was saying he wouldn't be able to tell which ones I painted and which
Oh,
ones you painted.
earlier tonight you were not speaking that way, so I apologize.
Oh, earlier tonight I was looking for validation because it's painting is one of those things that's really hard to get great validation on.
Oh no, you've done a beautiful, beautiful job on those guys, and I hope that you're really excited because I am that once you get your whole army set up, like they're gonna look beautiful on the table.
Hell yeah! So actually, Ferris Wheel is he's saying he has the same hipster bone of wanting to flex, not using the best stuff, which I think all three of us have, which is fucking hilarious. And
That is
actually,
very true. Yeah.
I'm touched. He said he's proud of my painting job, which is pretty good
Yeah,
because
he did
Ferris
great.
is
His salamanders are really nice.
Ferris is quite the good painter himself. So that actually is kind of means a little bit. Like that's
Right
awesome.
on. Right on,
All
yeah.
right, so let's
And
get back to building these
everything
guys. We're never gonna get this shit done.
Oh, I'm not worried about it.
Me
Shit.
either. That's fine.
Like I said, this is the most boring part of the army to actually watch assemble. Um, Next time we do this, if we do this before the rest of my stuff arrives, then I'll make sure I have some guys primed and we can do some painting. Next week, I believe I'll have all the Vipers and the jet bikes will all
Ooh.
come in as well. I think tomorrow, my Wave Serpent my second Wave Serpent will be here, and I believe this weekend my Fire Prism will be here. And so we'll have some more fun stuff to assemble, and then, like I said, I'll get some stuff together so we can do some painting because that'll be really fun
Yeah.
to try out here too. So
And I guess I should go into it just for anybody who might watch this later of the paint scheme that I actually used on these salamanders, which we got off of Forge, or we got off of the YouTube. But to make them work, Jeff really had to show me the proper way to make this work. So um, I did the base in Caliban green. So that's what they are currently. This dark green. Then I did a base coat, which is basically covering all of that as much as you can with wog flesh, which is normally used for orc skin. And then we did a dry or a wet brush, which is a little bit more than a dry brush, where you have more
I know
paints
it's
than you
kind of a
normally
silly
do.
distinction. It's just like
It's a
a
weird
little
thing.
bit more than a dry brush.
Of warpstone glow, which is the main amazing, really vibrant color that they
Oh,
have.
such a nice color.
And then we did a dry brush of, I think it was moot green, correct?
I think so. Yeah, it was mood green because we didn't do
Yeah.
the niblets of dry. It was the mood green.
So we did a dry brush of the moot green, and then we went through and did a few detailing with the Bieltan green, which is basically going to the recesses. It's really weird. Like I didn't think this would make that much of a difference, but after seeing what it did, I was really impressed with it. And then doing just the barest highlight with Niblet green. As far as their weapons, of course, we used Abaddon Black and Lead Belcher, um, which so these two colors. Abaddon Black is just a standard kind of black, but a really nice one, and then Lead Belcher to kind of get some of that shine to them. And then Nuln Oil was one thing we did across the guns to make them shine like metal. It's a really nice shade if you're ever looking to do any metal sort of anything. And then we did Auric Gold Armor Gold for the eyes and the chest eagles. I don't know.
Did we
Their
do
chests
Balthazar
there.
gold first? I don't remember now.
No, we did. We were thinking about doing Balthazar, but we decided it was going to be too dark, and decided to go with the just the auric armor, and then did a null oil over that, and then re-highlighted with the auric. Other than that, just the Abaddon Black for the shoulders and the holsters, and it's pretty good.
Yeah, one thing I really liked about that Warhammer TV spot as well was, I mean, it's one of those things where it's simple, but you don't see it until you do, and that
Yeah.
was really, not painting the guns, all in one color. And usually, I mean, I would have just, done either all black and the Nuln Oil and some highlights, or I would have done, dry brush and like Lead Belcher or something like that.
Yeah.
And one thing that was on their spot right there is they actually highlighted different parts of the gun in the silver and left the body black, and I think that was a really good trick. I really appreciate that they shared. And it's one of those things. It's very small, but I feel like the contrast it added was really nice.
Apparently, during the time we've been talking, Todd has been building his new Plague Marine army. It looks like he's got some three plague crawlers he's been building while we've been talking.
Ooh,
Those
ooh,
things are
nice.
vicious. Those are plague crawlers, correct, Ferris?
Those are those big tanks, right? They look like a demolisher that kind of is chubby.
No, they're the kind of like smaller tanks that are big at the front and kind of like go down to the bottom and have that big cannon on them.
I don't have something to look it up with. Wait a minute. Yes, I do. Hang on. I want to
Oh man.
see.
So are you thinking about getting into Plague Marines with all their current a bunch of the point reductions they got with the chapter approved 2018? Plague Burst Crawler. Ooh, even better. I honestly like Plague Marines are one of those armies I'm going to run eventually. I have so many models and have them playing, and they're so fluffy and fantastic.
Mm.
It's just I know I've seen Ferris wheel has this
Oh yeah, that's
amazing
the one I was thinking of. I said it was a demolisher with chubby, but
yeah.
yes, that is a fantastic tank, and you've got three of them you're running.
He's got three of them, but he also has Mortarion, who is so well painted.
Oh, what a beautiful model! That is
Such
such a
it's
great
one of
tank.
the best models in my opinion. But he has
I
a
agree. I agree
Mortarion,
with that
and
completely.
so
That is a great model.
I can't wait to see the army Ferris puts together. He
Ooh, these
says,
tanks are fantastic. I love them.
yeah, he says
What are the rules?
they've got FNP and stuff, and they have really good gun options. To be honest, um,
Oh
the
yeah, they got Nurgle's FNP. That's awesome.
yeah. I don't know the exact point reductions. I just know overall Death Guard got a lot of point reductions with chapter approved.
Yeah, the new Nurgle armies that they came out with for the 8th edition kind of poster child army are so nice.
There's-
Really, really beautiful.
I gotta admit, like I really enjoy how beautiful like a lot of the Nurgle army, and they're not supposed to be pretty, but they
But
really
they are,
are
but they are for, that
freaking
Nurgle way.
gorgeous.
Hmm.
Um, it's really weird switching from Chaos as far as painting goes, because like the details on Chaos get paralyzing. If I'm honest, like one of the reasons I haven't painted my army is because, I was going to do an Alpha Legion army, but then I was like, there's no standardized Alpha Legion paint scheme, and then trying to figure out what's going to be the best, and then just, let's see, two Marines. So the Marines got 2 points cheaper, which is really nice if you're going to use 20 or 30 of them. Ferris Will says that's a really good point. Maybe I'll have to rebuild a 2,000 point Plague Marine list and test them against you, Jeff. All right, so I see
Yeah, sure.
you've got something more. You're cutting out some arms here.
Oh no, I'm cutting out the legs here on these guys. I just figured I would kind of idly do it while we were chatting. I don't know if it's something that really requires a lot of attention.
No, definitely. I was gonna paint, but I'll probably not get to that as I've had a martini and a half. Because
Oh man, I really wanted to go make a drink, but I was having too much fun just
well, like
chatting and
that,
bullshitting and
and like that's one of the things about like these kind of streams is I just want to. I love talking about these things, but I'm not the most knowledgeable guy. But I know the most knowledgeable guys about this, and so it's something I'm really looking forward to doing more of this.
yeah,
Um,
it's super fun. I mean, and definitely for me, like I am ignorant of so much. Like the lore, for the most part, has been pretty stable, and that's been part of the universe that I've really loved for so long. But like I said, anytime I say, this is going to be this way or this works this way, it's not my knowledge when it comes to tabletop. It's because I'm a voracious reader and I've read like every Army's 1d4 tactics section. So I definitely want to point out like I am not a pedantic, or I shouldn't say pedantic, but I'm not a fully knowledgeable person when it comes about the game. I just read a lot.
which is never a bad thing actually. Um, and like it's really funny. Like I'm really fortunate actually to be able to have the different viewpoints and kind of trying to mix them together. So reading is half the battle, says Ferris Wheel, and so you're
Go
halfway
Joe.
there. Go Joe. Um,
How old is he? Because he's hitting the nostalgia jokes up.
younger than me. I'll let you know
Oh
that
wow,
much.
well done.
Ferris, if you want to reveal your age, I'll let you. But I'll just let you know younger than me. But genuinely, I gotta say, pretty mature, which is fantastic. Could you move your camera just a little bit to the right so we can see kind of more what
Oh
you're
yeah, sure.
doing?
Like I said, nothing super special here. I'm just kind of cleaning up the plastic from these guys' crotches.
Ferris says he's a very mature 9-year-old. Oh man,
I was
those.
waiting for time to be like, he's very mature for his age, and I'd be like, wait a minute.
Oh
That's
man,
a funny way of describing a platonic friend.
I gotta admit I am a little very not a little I'm very jealous of your tools. Those handles look fantastic.
Like I said, I was just lucky that my dad makes these and turns these things, and like I said, I have more. I wish I could find them and just show you, but I don't think I have any that are within reach. They're all with my leather stuff, which is
No,
across
no,
the
no,
room.
no worries about showing them off now. But like, I'm just really like those are very nice things, especially for
Mhm.
joint pain.
If I can get him out in this damn shop, I will definitely have him make you some because
No, no, don't.
they are
Only if it'll make him if it'll bring him joy to make them. Like, like I do not want to
If
pressure
we get him out
anybody
in the
into
shop,
making them. Like,
then we would be happy. Like that's what we want. We want him, out and turning because that's his favorite thing to do.
oh, okay, yeah,
Like
and
I
he
said, we've got this amazing shop now, so it's like,
well, and I know he primarily worked as a pit boss, but like his true passion seemed to be in woodworking. Is he made every single piece of wood that was in your home growing up, correct?
yep, 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 he is. He's a phenomenal woodworker. He never wanted to do it as a job because it was what gave him, pleasure as a hobby. And
I gotta admit, if I could do this as a job, I would not complain. I want to do whatever I want. Whatever brings me pleasure. If I can do that for a job,
yeah,
I'll find a
seriously.
way to make it work. I don't give a shit.
Well, that's been the big difficulty for me is definitely, like I said, I'm going through burnout. I work in tech. I'm a software engineer.
So
Um,
basically, you're the average. You're exactly where you should be in your tech career at burnout phase.
Burnout phase, exactly. Yes, midlife crisis and burnout phase. Um, but yeah, it's definitely where was I? I've been wanting to do because some of my hobbies, I very much could turn into like the leatherworking or the woodworking. I could turn into actually doing, especially the leatherworking, could turn into something that I could do as a profession. But it's really hard to walk away from the income as a software engineer. And
I
unfortunately, when you suffer from something psychological like burnout, you can't just force your way back in. You have to let yourself kind of heal.
and it's such a foreign concept to. I know, like even me, if when I was younger, I would have been. It would have been a very foreign concept to me, but like as I've gotten older, I can completely understand. If you don't take that time, you're not going to solve anything. So it's kind of interesting. And yeah, as far as the income goes, there's been a more than a few times I've considered just studying up on tech because of my friends who are in it and seem to be doing a little better than I can do with my current skill set.
Well, I mean, it's all what makes you happy. I mean, you got to do what you got to do to pay the bills, but
hmm
if you can, figure out what it is that you like. Kenneth and I are very pragmatic people, so we definitely will. Here are all the things that we like. We'll
Optimistic
sit down.
pragmatic or the regular kind? This is a
Oh yes,
reference that
and
no
it's
one else
pragmatic
will get.
too. Yeah. But very much it was very much a pragmatic like these are all the things that make me happy. Which of these things would be the most lucrative, and not because of money in and of itself. It's just that stability.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also being able to do programming and stuff worked out really well for us. But yeah, I mean, I would love to be able to sit down and just do my leatherworking because I definitely have achieved a level of skill that could make me a decent income.
I
But
mean that
like I
belt.
said,
Okay, so those of you watching might not know, but like this man made me a belt with a complete musical staff all the way around and a tune actually carved into it, and it is beautiful and fantastic. And like this is one of the least impressive things I've seen him make. Is the scary thing. Like
oh, thank you.
he's
Yeah,
studying
like
how
I
to
said,
do the
yeah.
sculpting of leather and like to do like have you ever seen like a saddle is the best example I can think of, but like the flattened out leather pieces that have the intricate working on them to make them look just fantastically beautiful. Jeff is capable of. So when he
Well,
says
thank you.
leatherworking, don't just think of somebody like stapling together a few places of leather. You got to think of like piece de resistance as far as leather. Like so, this is one of the very few cases where like context is almost more important than the words themselves. Like
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and it's a lot of fun too. It's a really fun thing to do. It's just having to take into account like the carpal tunnel.
yeah.
Doing something like that at a pace that would be required would be difficult and could cause some serious ramifications with my day-to-day life. So
Yeah.
very much like I said, I'm blessed with a phenomenal um, wife who has been able to say, you know what, why don't you just take some time to um, heal and recover from that and figure out what you want to do and if you want to go back to tech or if you don't. And in the meantime, here's some money to play with to get an Eldar army, which is now sitting in front of you. So
That is
We take
fantastic.
turns because neither one of us have ever been able to work at the same time as the other. Like one of us has a job and one of us is in school or whatever. And even when that has a chance of like, hey, we're gonna have two incomes, one of us gets laid off.
Well, I gotta say though, being able to leapfrog, so no matter what, one of you is improving is a fantastically amazingly unique thing that not a lot of people get to embrace, and I think like it's I'm super happy that you guys have had a chance to embrace that, because usually it's one of those like somebody's stuck, like one person stuck while the other is searching, but you guys
Hmm.
never seem to have fallen into that rhythm. It's more of the one of you is always improving on something, which is, I think, kind of important and been really beautiful to watch. I gotta let you know.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that a lot. Um, and the same thing is true for you too. I mean, we definitely, love it when you're successful. We love it when you're doing well, and like I said, when you're happy. And that seems what you're doing now. I mean, being able to hang out at your place and listen to your work and seeing how you and your wife get to spend so much time together and talk and play and that's really, it makes me happy. And um, it just makes us really happy. Like more than anyone, we
Ah, you
really
guys.
enjoy it when you are very happy.
Well, and I gotta say, like, before you guys came down, I was going through a little period of self doubt, which everybody goes through every once in a while. But like,
Hmm. Hmm.
between you guys and Meredith, like, it's like the ultimate cure. Like, all of a sudden, like, I go from self doubt to going, like, you know what, I'm pretty fantastic. This channel's gonna work. I'm gonna fucking make $1 billion. I don't know why I've ever doubted myself. But like, support structures are something that like very few people ever talk about, and even like by no means is this channel even considered successful yet or anything like that. But like, to have the confidence to continue to keep doing it every day, you have to have some delusions. And and the funny thing is, you can
Selective
know that.
ignorance.
No, it's not ignorance. You can know their delusions, but if they're motivational enough that you're like, I'd like that thing to be true. If you just have like just the most minor amount of backing, that's all you need to keep doing it. And so that's why I've actually set up my schedule. I'm going to try to be doing in February. I'm going to be streaming every weekday 7 to 6, and then doing weekend streams as well. Or sorry, not 7 to 6. That would
I was like,
be a
wow, that is an
negative.
intense schedule you're putting out for yourself.
Sorry, 4 to 6 at the very least. And then I'm going to be streaming every day until then. Hopefully, is the plan is literally to stream every day for this entire year. So, anybody who's enjoying the
Wow.
stream, I'm going to be probably leaning heavily, well, not heavily, but leaning a little bit on you, Jeff, for Warhammer content. Same with you,
Sure.
Ferris, if you want to do some streams with me. But I'm going to be just streaming every fucking day to make this thing work, because this is what I want to do. Ain't I though? Ain't I over the top?
I was gonna say, I'm in a way, I'm sad to hear that you had, some self-doubt because,
Well, no, like without
I can only
self
speak for
doubt.
Chance and I, but like we've never doubted you. By the
Oh,
way, I want to say, one of the most important things to have as a toolkit in your set is fucking light for when you drop these pieces on the ground and you can't find them. And I always keep a light next to the table so that I can look around for the ones I've dropped on the goddamn floor.
apparently Ferris is gonna download my VOD and make a sweet compilation.
Oh, goodness.
As far as not doubting, like that is like super touched, by the way,
No, I mean
because
it's absolutely sincere. Like we've never doubted you, and we remember, when you came from, I would say, your most difficult times,
yeah,
um, and
that
came
time
up,
where
and
I
like
was my identity stolen and couldn't get a job to make
I
my
wasn't gonna like
like.
say it because no, it's personal, but yeah, that
Oh no,
time.
that is no secret to literally anybody who knows me, because it's one of those like, it somehow always comes up where I'm like, yeah, oh yeah, I had my identity stolen and shit got real way too fucking fast.
Yeah, I mean you were just barely 18, weren't you?
I was 19, but that was not a fun time to be Ty. Let me tell you
No,
what.
no. But everything you've ever done, we've always like, hey, Ty could make this awesome. I mean, the audiobooks, the bartending. I mean, shit, they've got your
Oh,
drink in a casino town because
so
of
weird.
that.
Did I tell
Well,
you I've gone like now I've gone three different places in the Typhoon. Like when I asked the bartender what their drink is, three different places without knowing me at all have said the bartenders have said the Typhoon is their drink, and
no
then I'm
sh.
like, and every time I'm like, I'm the person who invented it. They're like, you're the guy, and I'm like, yeah, it's Thai. I'm Thai, and this is the Typhoon, and they're like, this drink makes me so much money, and I'm like,
Oh man, see, this is what I'm talking about. Is everything you put into, you're going to turn into something successful, and so that's why we've. And I'm not really like it just seems like a practical, pragmatic thing. Like we've never had any doubt in you because you always turn things into something beautiful. So like this thing with your job right now, like you're using your personality, you're getting promotions, or you're on your way at the very least. You've
Mhm.
got that employee of the month a couple times at least. Like it's no surprise when you do great things. You know what I mean?
I'm surprised every time. Anyway, enough about me and everything. You've been actually
I
making
love you,
a bit of.
man.
I love you too, man. Um, as far as your progress is going, it looks like you've put the torsos together and are now adding them to the leg bases
Yeah.
here.
So I'm running a little tiny production line right here. I just put the legs because these legs come in two pieces, which is irritating because you can't pose them anyways. So I know they do it for the sprues, the way that they're laid out. But at the same time, I kind of laugh sometimes. And then I've put the torso together, which is also two parts. I've filled up the little bucket of their pelvis with some glue, and then I'm setting them in. I also love that there are females in the Eldar army, which is actually quite rare in the Warhammer
Yeah.
universe, and it
Well,
makes me really happy because they're like a complete equitarian culture.
so with the inclusion of the Adaptus Sororitas,
I don't know how many eyes it has. It's like Sororitatas.
yeah, I
Say it like Doritos. It's the Adeptus Cerritos.
um, would you be interested? Like, have you read any of their rules or checked in on them because of the
I haven't, but I've been thinking about it because they have that living saint character now, which is a pretty awesome addition.
yeah, because their whole army list is in basically beta. Oh, Ferris has actually gone through the Adaptus Sororitas.
Really?
What do you think of them, Ferris? Like, if you had to, like, would you be interested in fielding one? Are they kind of still too in beta? Are they? What would you consider them as far as worth it or not? If you had to say worth buying and making an army, oh, you say good. Oh shit.
Oh, that's awesome. Do they have like a good identity now? Because I know they suffered a lot from like the females in power armor, but not quite as good. Like, do they have a really good? I know the flame weapons have really been a part of it. Like, is their identity really good now?
He says they have good rules, but getting the models is hard, so it's not worth buying yet because they're still all metal.
Oh, wow.
Wow, it's interesting that
Yeah,
they'd release a
I've,
rule
I've
set for something that they're still doing
15
metal
resin
with.
models the last couple days. I definitely understand the value of waiting for the plastic kits. Fucking resin. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I didn't have anything else to add. He said more plastics for them are coming out this year, though.
Oh, good.
It's a huge deal. Oh, he says big deal, but to me it's a huge deal.
That is fantastic. I am glad to hear that.
I can see you being
Um,
really happy playing that kind of army, if I'm honest, because they seem to
shh,
have.
shh, shh.
Did you just shush me?
No
What?
more. No more. I'm joking. I am looking at Eldar, Astra Militarum, Orcs, and Tyranids on this wall alone.
Shh, 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 shh. No one else needs to know.
No one
He
else. I'm
says their
playing my
identity
golf.
is pretty fleshed out because they have like neat faith abilities.
Ooh, do they have their own like psychic school? Are they even like psychic? And I guess I should ask in the first place.
We'll wait for the delay in the answer. He
Every time I
says,
see an Eldar battle report where the guy doesn't take any psychers, I kind of like shit myself.
"Oh, you know what? So we'll do a featured stream with Ferris where we're gonna go more into the Soritas and he says they don't have psychers, but they have a lot of interesting things. So, Ferris, tomorrow or maybe Friday, would you be interested in doing a stream with you and me doing a Warhammer kind of overview and stuff? Do you have more things to work on that we kind of got to do a similar thing to this stream? You can hit me up on like Facebook or just text me or anything if you for the answer. Um, and I noticed you're kind of starting to hit the groove as far as putting these together. I can see why you weren't too worried about getting them together. You were assembling quite quickly here.
Well, like I said, I kind of do these. I can't keep moving these around because I need to find a new position for my camera because I think my hands get a little too much into what I'm doing, but that's easily rectified.
Actually, if you
Um,
can bring your camera up, I think a little bit would be the biggest solution.
let's see. I need to move it over first. Mm,
There you go. Actually, the webcam we're using our phones, so use your phone as far as the handwork, and then as, just a regular webcam.
Yeah, see, I've actually got a little webcam on top of my iPad over there, and then I've got my phone in this $17 rig that Ty has that I bought a Mimic of because it was so goddamn good.
If you
Um,
just search ring light on Amazon, it's the first thing that comes up.
Yeah, it's not very expensive and it's beautiful. So yeah, just got a little production line going here. Once again, it really depends on the units. These Wraith guards, especially the Wraith blades, which I will show you when they come out of their dip, um,
Yep.
they were fairly fiddly.
And they
There are
were
a
like
lot of pieces.
they were the unit we were most excited for, right?
Yeah, the unit I
So
was most
sad.
excited about and immediately had to get dunked because of the fucking primer. White primer in cold weather.
Oh,
I know it should be obvious, but like every other color I've ever used up here has been fine. Never had a problem.
so weird.
But the Ghost Axe Wraith blades have a tremendous because the head is in two pieces, the upper body's in three pieces. This gun, well, for them they have the axes and the shield
Yeah.
are three pieces. Then they have this. They have two armor plates. The legs are in three different pieces. Like there's a lot of pieces to assemble them, and so I did the first batch production line, and the second batch I did two at a time because it was just a little bit easier to focus on each one and get their pose and get the banners flowing kind of in a neat way.
Interesting.
Um,
Ferris says he doesn't like white primer for the exact same reason.
oh man, and it just
The
it's a good
rage.
brand. It's just I was just so upset. And I was so happy. It was the Wraithblade Ghost Axes. And so I was just very excited. I had them all. I even had one guy where he had the shield behind him. He was leaning into it. I was very excited. And they're all sitting in a tub of shit, so that
Oh.
tomorrow I can toothbrush them all off.
All right, I'm gonna go grab a soda real quick because I'm out of martini, and that two martinis is more than anybody for a night. And I'll be right back. Go ahead and continue your build. I have it on your hand cam, and so you can kind of build through and kind of take everybody what you're doing.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so once again, I'll have the chat up because all of my devices are pointed at a different direction. So I'm just going to kind of ramble on, and Ty will come back, and if you have anything to say, he will follow up. Um, so yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll glue their heads in. I like the fact that you can pose the gun and the gun arm on your own, but gluing the two pieces together and into the arm sockets is very frustrating, and I have not figured out a good way of doing it. The last set of these I built, I actually glued the supporting hand under the gun, anything about these at all. I don't think I even knew they existed or even knew a relevance for them. But Hitch actually has one, and I do have carpal tunnel. So when I was down visiting him and we were doing our little painting demo, I was able to use one of these, and it completely eradicated all of the pain in my hand, usually from holding these quarter-sized bases. So I got one on my own. Pretty darn good. And the preferred Amazon review is fucking hilarious. It's
Really?
like, oh my god, have you seen the Amazon review for this?
I actually haven't.
You should bring it up and read it so that you get it. But there's one, the best voted answer, is pretty goddamn funny. So I was just plugging that again, and then I also have the one for the monstrous bases. Although I got this one first, assuming that I could put the little model in it, and nope. So now I have two of them. Well, that works because I have a lot of models that require it.
Send this is for you. This is for the Citadel paint handle, correct?
Yes, yes.
All
Yeah,
right.
so find the
So
preferred review.
preferred view. Let me take a look at this. It looks like. Let's take a look here. Answers questions. Okay, so verified purchase. I did not know what I was missing. I did not know what I was missing in my painting setup, but this was it. After multiple Reaper Bones Kickstarters, we hubby/I realized we had almost 1,000 unpainted minis in our house. Every time we sat down to paint a couple,
No, that's
I had
not
to
it.
stop. Nope. Okay, the shizzle.
Sorry, I was trying to decide if I should interrupt you or not, but
No,
that's
no,
let me.
definitely interrupt. Is it the
Um,
shizzle?
I don't know what the title is. My mom used to bug me about moving out of the basement. I think is how it starts.
Okay, let me see if I can find that.
So as a note, I was just mentioning this on the stream. These setups where you have like a gun arm and then the supporting arm are fun, but they are nightmares to glue and set up on the model because you have to glue 3 points at the same time. The workaround I found on these guys is I actually glue the supporting hand of the gun first and I let it sit, not fully dry, just enough, and then I go back to the model, I fill in the shoulder sockets, and then I kind of wrap the gun arm, both of the arms back in and hold them. And that's been the best solution I've been able to come up with to deal with these things like that. Okay, let me look up here too because I wonder if it got taken down. I thought it was like the highest voted one on there. Ooh, is his arm moving in a weird position?
Let me see. And this is the Amazon review for the just the painting handle, correct?
Yes. Go away. Go away. All
So
right.
I don't have
Amazon.
things popping up for me as far as living in mother's basement.
That's okay. Here, let me see if I can find it. Maybe there might be multiple listings for it too. Citadel.
Oh, I guess that's true. Um, One thing I would say is, as far as these salamanders go, if you're looking to make a Primaris army, the how to paint on the Warhammer channel is fantastic and it works very well for them. I chose to base them in not Armageddon Dust. What's the other one? Agrellan Earth. So it'd get the nice cracking from them. If you want to take it to an extra level, you can actually they have a lava base tutorial, which is interesting, which where you basically get a yellow, an orange, and then an in between, but of the two, and then you paint the base that, and then kind of use a mix between of Armageddon Dust and Agrellan Earth, and you mix it really heavily together, and then base the figure, and then hit it with a blow dryer so it cracks, and then go over it with a Nuln Oil Abaddon Black combination to blacken
Hmm.
the top of it, and then when you dry it, it'll break apart, and you have this volcanic base. I might try that for Vulcan, Heston, this guy right here, but I, it seems like a lot of work to try to do
Oh,
every bit of your army with it.
so I apologize. It was on the large handle. I found it here.
Ah,
Number one review. My mom threatened to kick me out of her basement if I didn't get a job. Well, I showed her. After ordering whatever the hell this nerdy thing is, I started my own business. I convinced other socially stunted morons to let me paint their dolls for money.
Is that the whole review?
That's the whole review.
That's fucking beautiful. Oh man, I gotta admit, every time I see the base with the fucking clippy arms, I'm like, that's pretty awesome. But then I look at the
I
price and I'm
have
like, nah.
I have one of these that I've had for a long time. I'm not getting a good thing because I glue on my hand right now, but it's got the magnifier and the two clippy arms. Um, this glue on the new plastic sets is so good that I don't often have a need for it, but definitely gluing these resin guys and repairing them when the little fuckers break, because that glue that I use for them isn't very fast. It has definitely been worth its weight in gold.
I keep telling you, you gotta use the uh who'd you call it? Brain is dead.
Yeah.
The hot that boiling water and cold water trick to reshape
Oh!
them.
I just mean that like some of them have been fuckers and broke on their own.
Oh shit, you got them when they're broke. Um,
No, not so much that. More like I assume that this is a solid model of reasonable quality. Snap. Oh. Because I don't want to sit there and hold it. And in fact, you can actually kind of, degrade the glue seam if you're trying to hold a slower super glue. The
hmm,
little clippy arms have been very, very nice.
fantastic. And so, which of your armies are you most excited to get on the table? Taking and this is taking apart the excitement factor of the newness of your Eldari.
I don't think I'm capable of that.
Never mind. So it's Eldari.
Yep.
That is a fair and measured answer, and that's all I can
Yes,
ask for.
yes. I like. I'm always. I'm excited. Let's see. I could probably put them in order. Um, I'd say it would be this one, the Tyranids, and then the Orcs and Imperial Guard are kind of tied.
Really, I would have actually thought you'd be more excited about the Orcs than the Imperial Guard.
Um, they are both equally fascinating to me for different reasons. The character, the reason I picked the Orc as the first army when I got back into this is because there's less pressure in that there's a element of randomness to the Orc army. Like
It's
they're
just built
going to
in.
fuck up, things are going to blow up, and you're going to have to just laugh about it. When things go bad, they go bad. When things go right, they're amazing. And it's just the way it is. And I like that. And I also like the idea that like the orcs are the only ones winning in 40K because they're doing exactly what they want to do.
Because there's only war because the Orc gods and the Orcs only want war, and there you go.
Oh my god. Speaking of, we're gonna change into the fantasy paradigm here for a second because
Oh
I have
shit.
to talk about this. Um, I when I went to the hobby store, I would say maybe about a year ago, and
Yeah.
saw all of the new fantasy Warhammer armies and units and so forth. I was like, wow, these are really pretty, and I looked around and I couldn't find. Sorry, this light keeps moving just enough to cause a glare, and I'm trying to fix it,
Oh,
but it's not
it's actually not that bad of a glare. Like when it
okay.
comes across, it's quite nice.
There we go. But I asked the store owner, I'm like, hey, where's the core rule book for the Warhammer Fantasy Battle? And he kind of looked at his feet and he said, well, there isn't one. It's like a two-page manual, and then all the rules come in the boxes. And I went, so you're fucking joking me? And that was about all I got out of it. Um, as a stocking stuffer, my wife bought me a copy of White Dwarf, which you have all the ones that I ever had, and the new
Holy
ones are very
sh!
fun.
They're
And they have a
awesome.
battle report for the Warhammer Fantasy Battle, and I was reading it and looking at the armies, and I'm like, I have no fucking idea what's happening. I don't recognize any of these models. Like they rebuilt the entire line. I mean, just to make people buy more shit, but the models are nice, but they've rebuilt everything. I had no idea what was going on. And so finally I went to, the 1D4chan and I read about the Warhammer Fantasy universe. Holy Christ. What a fucking hot garbage mess.
Is it
I
really
am
that bad? Like I thought
oh,
it
you
was like
have to
something
read it.
salvageable.
It's insanity. I mean, basically, Chaos won and the world fractured, and then Sigmar went, I'm not having this, and went around and collected up his buddies and started up all the new races over again, and everything's different, and everything's weird. People keep doing weird things, and everything's all completely different and new and doesn't really make a lot of sense.
So that's why Sage of Sigmar.
Yeah, that's why we have Sigmarines.
Yeah, which is
The
strange.
Stormcast Eternals are literally suits of armor forged by one of the dwarf guys into these immortal suits.
Apparently, Ferris says
Um,
the ending was cool.
well, yeah, that was because that was where what's his name, the Everchosen, like won. But trying to read the story now, it reads like poor fan fiction, and I'm sad because I'm not trying to like degrade the universe. Like I love it. I think the old fantasy universe and the old fantasy codexes were codices were fantastic. They were great. Like the undead. I have no idea what edition it was of Warhammer Fantasy. That really the first big undead manual with Nagash and everything was. It was just a great story. You could just read the lore and just love it like a novel, and to read
Apparently,
that like Nagash is a half-ass god and Sigmar is a half-ass god and Malekith is now a half-ass god, and but they're not really, but they are, and then their armies are all different. Like dwarves, like Longbeards and Slayers and stuff. That's all gone. They're all these Zeppelin copper Tesla weirdos, and
that sounds
in and
kind
of
of cool, if I'm honest.
in and of itself, not bad. It's just it's kind of a tragedy for what was there.
Interesting.
So
Ferris
I recommend
says, uh,
yourself, but
that's kind of an sorry, it's kind of interesting because Ferris is like, the ending was cool though. Sigmar destroys the Kingslayer and casts Archaon into the void, but you can't keep the baddest man down. And he crawls back and beats Sigmar mostly to death with his fists. Is that really the way it ended? Like, that's fucking crazy. Like,
it is really just crazy.
oh man, sounds awesome. And if you're doing stuff with your hands, don't forget to get it on camera, Pookie.
Right. I tend to lean things over my lap a lot, which is why I have to have a flashlight next to my desk. All I'm doing is cutting out their little kind of unique backpack items, whatever they are here.
Interesting. And as far as this, it is very anime Ferris. That is correct. Um, as far as these backpack items, are these some of the things that you would add to your uniqueness? As far as since you're making two of the same unit, is this kind of those smaller details to say these are these,
Mm, not
or
so much. They do offer a few items that you could use to do that, and I definitely have a bits box that is pretty astounding now of just Eldar stuff. But once again, when it comes to the Guardians, their craft world is really going to dictate their unique flavor for this particular army. So,
oh no, I just mean modeling wise. I know like rules wise, and I know and painting. There's going to be so many different things to make them unique. It's just when you're making two of the same kit, like do you kind of like swap up the these
it
particular items, or do
depends.
they look just so awesome that you kind of
It
stick
depends
with
on the
them?
kit. With rank and file, I don't really think about it particularly, but as of these I showed off earlier, like this is the Farseer, the plastic Farseer that comes by
So
itself, and I had two
awesome.
of the exact same thing. So I did just a small conversion. I took one of the unused ghost swords from the Wraith Blades, which is a fairly decent size for a Witchblade, and then I took a one-handed pistol from I think one of the Guardian or the Dire Avenger sets. I don't know. I think it's from Dire Avenger Exarch that I didn't use, and I cut them down and remodeled them and sanded them and sliced in the handle and everything so that now he has this big falchion that is looks actually looks pretty good as far as being a default weapon compared to the other ones. So although they're very similar models, of course, I didn't do anything beyond this. They now are represented differently, and combined with, say, Ulthwa and Alatok color schemes, they will stand apart very nicely on the battlefield.
And now you have a favorite because the one you altered is going to be infinitely cooler than one that came in a set, no matter how cool the set is.
Yes, yes. I mean, as long as I did a good job on it, because if I look at it one day and I'm like, oh, it's not straight, he will instantly become the more hated version.
I know that feel. That is a perfectly valid feel. I feel like I should be doing something with my models, but building is so much more interesting than doing like base coats of painting and stuff like, which is the only thing my brain is anywhere close to being able to handling right now.
And I
Um,
love building the models. Like I really, even with their
it's the
frustrations,
best part.
really enjoy building them. Like the sense of accomplishment from painting them for me is bigger.
Yeah.
Um, but building and assembling the models is I love it. It's great. It's great.
Now, have you been doing the cross hatching that I recommended with your resin models?
The resin models I have didn't require a lot of gluing. Um,
Nice. They're kind of like my
they
Vulcan, where there's like I think that he had three pieces, which was
Well,
fantastic.
my Dark Reapers had three pieces, and they were in such a position that there wasn't really a lot that I could do um, to enforce the glue. It was really just I put the glue
Hmm.
on them and I laid them down on top of their weapon so that it would set, and then just left them alone. The Rangers all came as one piece, except they broke, which required a bit more work. But once again, um, I considered doing something to restabilize the joint, but it was just too difficult on that particular model, and then the
Hmm.
Fire Dragons all came as one piece.
Oh, nice. Like and Eisenhorn. So he's been like the most intricate model, resin model you've had to fuck with, right? Because he had like
I would say that
10
this
different pieces.
guy is probably the more intricate.
Holy shit! Who's this?
This is Captain Badrock. This is the character for the Orcs, the Flash Git Bad Moon Freebooter. I have to say, one of the original edition 40k ideas were the freebooters, the pirate orcs,
Yeah.
and I was so happy when they brought them back from like second edition into eighth. Um, so the Flash Kits and Captain Badrock are freebooters.
Yeah.
Pirates are just multicolored monstrosities. This guy came in one, two, three, four, five, six pieces,
Damn.
but they were fairly bulky pieces, and I used epoxy on them, so they're not going anywhere. But he is a fun model. So Eisenhorn was probably one of the more fiddly ones. But I mean, resin.
Yeah. No, and I actually was really happy when I was doing the Volcanistan. His
He seemed to go together fairly
like
solidly.
I said, he had three pieces. It was his left arm and his right arm. And his right arm was almost all the way done. It was just his hand with a sphere or spear. I do apologize for my drunkenness. But yeah, he was really nice to model and quite fantastic, if I'm honest. I love his little model. The only thing that is very strange is because he's going to be the warlord of my army, but because he's not a Primaris, he's shorter than everyone, which is so strange and
That is a
so
great discussion.
unsatisfying.
That is a great discussion. And I would, if your friend is still on, I should say our new friend
Yeah,
is still on. I would love to hear what he thinks about the whole Primaris shift. Um, I definitely came at it from a you're just trying to sell new models kind of perspective,
I
and
thought I
because
changed a little bit of that when you were here.
um well, okay, I'm being cynical, um, but it definitely did feel a lot like, hey, we want people to stop using their Space Marine sets that have been around for a long time. They are beautiful models. Like, don't get me wrong, their sculptors are fantastic. Um, but yeah, I don't know, just making them better and making better models is going to get us modelers every single time.
So Ferris
We're
has
not immune
already
to it.
chimed. Ferris has already chimed in. He's like, the lore is pretty dumb and hand wavy, but the new
Hmm.
models are really, really great, so it's a little
Yes,
forgivable.
I agree with him completely. I am absolutely there with him. It's kind of like the Ultramarines, where the books, like all the books with oh shit, Uriel Ventris are fantastic books. The book with the Adominus Crusade with Robute are really fun books. I love the lore. I love him coming back and going, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, done
with
fucked it up.
Imperium. But seeing him on the table and seeing the purple Smurf dick sucking is rough. And I feel like same thing with the Primaris are that opposite. Maybe one of the only ones where it's opposite, where you look at the lore like, really nice model though. Like I'm excited to see you paint like the aggressors and the intercessors.
Ferris has a great point here. He says one of his favorite part is that they paint very easily and very nicely. So you see a lot of very nicely painted Primaris, which I can vouch for right here. Look at my Primaris that I painted, being
And a lot
a
of terribly painted Space Marines.
and he's like, so even new novices can, and that's really nice thing to appreciate. And like for beginners like myself, I got to admit, like these Primaris compared to the Chaos Space Marines, which aren't like, there's not like an insane gap, but like when you're starting out, it's a little more intimidating. But just as far as the Primaris go, learning that wet brushing and then the dry brushing and then just like these little techniques to make them look fan fucking tastic is great.
I have to admit, it only re-cements what we were talking about earlier, that the Space Marines are one of the greatest first-timer entryways into any of these games.
Yeah.
They're great to paint. They're really strong on the table. They're fairly generalist for the most part, except for the Primaris Marines. So that if you put one in the wrong position, like they're still going to do their job.
Yeah. Well, even Primaris, it's hard to fuck them up too bad. Like they not having a combat knife is weird. But they do have a
I don't
decently strong
think
attack.
so. I have to. So here, we'll ask Ferris this too. So when we did hand-to-hand combat with Ty's intercessors and couldn't find a combat weapon, I just fell back to like, just let them hit with their
Strength,
strength and
yeah.
improvise a weapon. But when I watched a battle report recently, like if you didn't have a close combat weapon, they couldn't fight in close combat.
That would be such a
Wouldn't that
huge
be shitty? And he
disadvantage.
can tell us because he's definitely has the
Yeah.
experience with the rules if that's like a thing.
He says he actually agrees that he loves Gilliman coming back. He actually changed the him not hating Ultramarines as much. He loves Girly Man now. The battle report is wrong, so we played
Okay,
it correctly.
okay.
Um,
So yeah, if they have a strength, they just hit with a weapon that is just
he wants to tell Imperial players that their Primarch is still either a pussy, dead, or Gilliman. Yeah, he says
I love
somewhere in
the
the book
lore
says that
of
the
Gilliman.
Jedi close combat weapon is that they use the strength of the user like we did and nothing else. So
Okay.
we were
Well,
correct
I'm glad we
in
played
our
it right. Yeah, I'm glad
interpretation.
we played it right, and the battle report was wrong. So, I love Gulliman's lore. I'm not sure about him on the tabletop, and I'm not sure if you were on earlier. We were talking about this. I mean, his when you play a powerful character in every battle report, you see him in the back with like three Razorbacks. That doesn't seem, and of course, I'm a fluffy player. I understand. Um, it seems like that seems boring and wrong. And also seeing him in a battle report walk through an entire Eldar army and
And then
having the people doing the battle report go, "Wow, that's the first time we've ever killed him." Ah, he stood back up again. That I feel like we need more Primarchs in the game so that they aren't so unique that they have to be perfect.
it's not a bad thing, I would say. I would love to see like a Vulcan or Rogel Dorn or somebody just
Yeah,
return
and we
kind
yeah, Ty
of.
and I talked about this tonight, like which Primarchs could be worked by like Leman Russ, Jagati Khan, Rogel Dorn, Vulcan. All of those could easily walk back on
Well,
into
Ferris
the current.
says he kind of agrees with you. He thinks he has he says you have very fair points, but the book somewhere that his genetic close combat weapon is or sorry, um, he is you have very valid points, but for 400 points, he is pretty costly to put on the field. So that is a fucking heavy investment into him at least, which is kind of balancing.
That's true, but like that Wraith Knight is 400 points, and you sneeze at him and he blows to pieces. I'm not arguing, and it's not Ferris I'm arguing with. It's the rules.
Yeah.
But it definitely the same thing. Like there are really heavy points investments that aren't paying off like he is, especially for a
Oh,
very elite army.
apparently, if he gets shot by an army, if you get him out of position and he gets just like a full shooting phase against him, he's dead like a motherfucker. Like, according to
Hmm.
Ferris, and that's I can kind of see that with you have to be still super careful with his positioning. He's not like a invincible dreadnought, like well, like dreadnoughts aren't invincible, but like this, he's not like this crazy, insane juggernaut destroying everything in his path. If you accidentally put him out of place, he'll get shot the fuck by Tau or like
Yeah,
any good
and like I
shooting
said,
army.
yeah, that's definitely, and it's a good point. I was watching a Striking Scorpions report. It was Ultramarines versus Eldar because I've been watching a lot of the Eldar ones to try and figure out what the fuck I'm doing. Um, and he had Royal Butte, and he got ahead of the Space Marine force. And then he proceeded to just walk through their entire army. Like the Space Marine player didn't bother to do anything with the rest of his Space Marine army. He just let Robu go rah across the front of the table. Uh,
That's crazy.
and once again, that comes back like if we had more Primarchs, maybe we could dilute that pool down a little bit, where it's not going to be such a cataclysmic thing if
Yeah.
on a tabletop Robuke goes down. It's a tabletop. It's not the lore.
Um, Ferris is saying maybe he got a little lucky walking through an entire Eldar army. Like that should
Mm,
not be the typical experience with using
okay,
robot
okay.
girly man.
I definitely. I mean, you would know much better than me. So if that is true, that actually makes me a lot happier.
He says he can get lucky sometimes, but Eldar have super good shooting, so they should have been able to take care of him and really just destroy robot girly man if just by carving away what's around him and getting to him in the shooting phase. So it sounds
Hmm,
Doom cast on a big expensive model like robot is a super good value according to Ferris. So that actually kind of makes a lot of
true.
sense.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Good
like
point. Good point.
it'd be like me using null zone against your big
I think it was the
vols.
same game actually. And he waited to use it on his librarian until he was like the units were in close combat, and then he cast it like on himself and just turned off all of the invulnerable saves for everything in close combat. It was like all of the ghost
Oh,
axes, which they're the ones that have a nice
yeah.
fatty invulnerable save, and it was the impact was impressive.
Honestly, it sounds like the Ultramarines player might have just been way superior to this poor
It, you
Eldar
know what?
player.
That's a good point. I think it's him and his brother. And his brother, the one who's off camera or off speaking, not on the camera, um, appears to be a really good general. He plays Ultramarine, he plays all Imperial, and he very rarely loses on camera. In fact, he played that Blood Angels army where he had two
S-
Storm Ravens and just fucking wrecked the table. It was because they said like hey Storm Ravens can get shot down. I've seen him get shot down. This guy played two and was able to maneuver them around the board in such a way they were there the entire game, and they
oh
just rained
fuck.
death. It was so good.
Uh, apparently, Null Zone is a straight fire spell, lit as fuck. Like, according to Ferris. No, it's it does sound like maybe it might have been a mismatch as far as generals went for
Okay.
the that particular one.
Here's a good point too. I'm trying to I don't think convincing is the right word. I was trying to relay to Ty that I think a really good addition to his army for a next purchase would be a Storm Raven.
Um,
He's really infantry heavy. Like he has every single infantry. Like I've never seen so many Space Marine models on the board as like his Salamander's army.
it's funny because
Um,
Ferris said the same thing when I showed him my list, so that's fucking hilarious.
that is awesome. Yeah, we were at the hobby store and I was like, maybe you should look at the repulsor tank because that thing's a badass and like you don't have any vehicles. Like when I built my Tyranids or my Imperial Guard list, I'm like, man, there's no vehicles to shoot. I'm just gonna take like as many of the kind of the mid range shot, which we never got to try it if that was a good idea or not. But so yeah, like I'm trying to tell him that maybe that Storm Raven gunship, the heavy duty one, would be a fun addition to his army.
Yeah, interested to see what you think of the Gun Raven Ferris. It says he has a Storm Raven. It's a bit run down, but I could fix it up. Love the repulsor. A lot cheaper now than it was, and has a bajillion guns, like actually a bajillion. And I've been kitting it out with the minigun and more of the las options. He said the Storm Raven is really good, a bajillion guns as well. Um,
Yeah, I just watched those games and I was like, man, that
Now,
is a unit.
with the Storm Raven, do you have to choose between transport and guns, or can you kind of balance it?
Well,
Excuse me,
he would
sorry.
know much better than I would. I would say in this
Fair.
particular game, the general took one of each. So he
Okay.
took one Storm Raven and he just basically taxied units all over the game, and he took the other one with the guns and just he blew a Wraith Knight to pieces in like 1.5 turns. It was
Okay.
insane.
So apparently has like a shitload of guns, but not nearly as much as the repulsor. And it keeps its transport capacity no matter what, so you can kit it out to be a gun one. It's just with the amount of fire drawing, maybe he thought it would be better to have one concentrated on the transportation and the other on the units. So I'm going to go back to your hands here while you're kind of. It looks like you picked up one of your tanks. Are you kind of doing some final adjustments? What are you doing here?
I'm just playing with him. Some of the pieces that I was looking at, like I was trying to decide if I want to glue this turret piece down here. This actually moves in two different ways. So this one actually has kind of a lock and key setup right here. So you can see the grooves on the top of the grooves on top of the tank up here.
Oh yeah.
It actually kind of slots in, so it rotates around and then will catch. And I was curious, just to reduce the number of pieces floating around, if I should glue that piece on because that other bottom plate will spin, or if I should leave this one free because it's kind of neat to see it move asymmetrically because I can off center this one and then stick this one off to the side. Then you kind of this asymmetric.
I would leave it unglued if it was me. I know as far as painting it might provide more challenge, but you said you had a decent sealant, so I would leave it on. So this, 'cause, I know you. You're like me. The options are going to be one of those things that if you have, you won't think about, and it'll be just fantastic. But if you don't have, you'll think about not having, and it'll annoy
And
that.
you'll be unhappy. Yep,
You'll
yep.
have that tiny itch in the back of your brain going.
This was a weird kit. It came with a bunch of extra, very unexplained pieces.
Hmm?
Some of them seemed very redundant too, like the crew bay back here. Um, in theory, will open.
Wait, what? How did you get it to open? Or well,
The new kits
supposedly.
that they've been producing just have pieces where you don't have to glue them. So it actually has this open. Hang on, I'm trying to get the light and the thing at the same
That
time.
means I probably fucked up my repulsor and it probably back could have opened if I was more
It
careful.
it's totally. I think it's more of a modeling diorama thing
Hmm.
than anything. But it came with like an additional piece on the back, which it looked completely redundant. I didn't really understand. It also came with a bunch of pieces that were just absolutely unexplained. Like it has this kind of array right down here. It
Hmm.
had this exact same piece with a slightly different off piece. No
Hmm.
explanation. Um, it also came with, let's see, I need a little bit of a pointer. It came with this piece right here, which was something that I glued on, which after looking up the rules is the crystal targeting matrix that you can add on.
Oh, cool.
And then it also came with this little piece, which wasn't explained, which I glued on because I could glue it on, and it was on the box art. But it seemed like an older plastic kit. It just has a lot of like. It might just be that it's Eldar. Like we talked about earlier, is that they really are producing a lot of models that allow extra detail if you want to use it, if you're really a
Hmm.
customizing person. Um, but this model in particular, like, it just didn't really explain what the fuck that shit was.
What the F was going on? And it looks like the floating bases you can just attach or unattach, which is a nice feature because I know my interceptors. I'm not looking forward to try to
I would say because you glued them
paint them.
on.
Yeah. Well, I glued them on,
Masking
which
tape, just
was
wrap them in masking tape, and
yeah. I'll wrap it in masking tape and then do the spray and everything.
this was another curious thing. Like this little stand right here,
That's
there was a
old.
shorter one with a smaller diameter, and if you look on the back here, there's a smaller hole and a larger hole.
Is it a difference in height?
It is a little bit of a difference in height and a difference of balance. I don't know. It's just
It could be
interesting.
that like the bigger one is more if you want to keep it so you can take it or remove it, and the smaller one is more if you want to permanent mount it.
Pew, pew,
I
pew,
don't
pew.
know. It's kind of weird doing a stream about something I know so little about, but I'm enjoying your insight into the lore and the balance of
Yeah,
tactics
and
and everything.
Ferris is really great knowledge of the actual tabletop too.
So how are your units that you're building coming along? Since that was kind of one of supposedly the focus, if we're lying to people, what this
I
stream
just have
was.
four more. I just have four more of them to do. I'm not too worried. Like I said, they're just as you can see, they're actually I'm lining them up in the background over here. They're next to the other the two war walkers that I have up here,
Hmm.
and then I've got the guardians here, all the heavy weapons that I have not attached because I just want to switch them in and out. I don't know where that came from. Is that supposed to be attached to something?
Wait,
Oh,
do
there
you
it
have
goes.
two of the those heavy weapon things, or is this going to be your third one, or is the second one already over there?
These things.
Hmm.
These come with each Guardian squad. So a Guardian
Yeah,
squad of 10, their special weapon trooper is the heavy gun. It's just a little bit heavy gun.
yeah.
So I have two boxes of Guardians.
Okay, so the one you've already made is the one on the left.
Right. This is the
Okay.
unit back here behind the Rangers, and then I have this unit here, and then like I said, I've got the
Who's in the back on your stand? Is that? Oh, I never mind. You
yeah.
showed
So
him.
this is the other Warwalker. I bought one box twice because of the unit count because the box sets are almost always a better use
Yeah,
of the money.
it's true.
But yeah, that's why I have the two dreadnoughts, the two Warwalkers, the 10 Spirit Wraith Guard, Wraith Blades, and then the two Farseers, with now one of them being converted. And then I
Nice.
guess I could just pan across what else is over here. So over there we have the Fire, or the Dark Reapers, and the Dire Avenger plastic kit back there.
Hmm.
Have some more Dire Avengers coming. And then in the back, we have the Wave Serpent with the, I love the veins in the front to represent the force field. That's a great touch.
That's pretty good.
My Autarch and my two Farseers. Then we have the, behind the Dreadnought there, we've got the Fire Dragons. And I don't know if I pointed him out recently, but
Hmm.
I also picked up Fugan.
Fugan, the still cast in metal.
Yes, I think I might pick up
Fugan, the pewter
Janzar.
cast.
Yes, Fugan Pewter. And then, yeah, I got some Rangers that are sitting back here. I have another unit of these guys coming.
Ooh, they look
Hooray,
good.
more resin. Dun, and then the Wraith Guard that are back here, and the difference between the D cannon, the Wraith cannon, and the D scythe was very little. So I actually took the one I thought was cooler, and then I'll just pick whatever one I want. Basically, the difference being that you go from a strength 10, 12 or 18-inch range to a strength 10, 8-inch range, but they automatically hit like flamers.
What the fuck?
Yeah,
Strength
the
10
math
auto hit? Go fuck
Yeah, the
yourself.
math actually works out to a bit more in favor of the other ones.
Yeah, because
But I
strength
mean, having the
12,
auto hit is great for like
the
Overwatch. Like that is
well,
brutal.
but strength 12, the chance of that auto the double of the things. So it says the scythes are hard to charge. Fair says, which sounds like a very accurate assessment of that situation. Charging a strength 12 or a strength
10.
10 auto hit is just ugh.
Yeah, that is definitely going to be a nice standoff unit. And that's why I ordered the other Wave Serpent, because I have a lot of units that, according, once again, this is not my first-hand knowledge, this is red knowledge. One thing about several of the close combat or mid-range units for the Eldar is that you really want to deliver them with a Wave Serpent. Because I have the Fire Dragons, I have the Ghost Axe Wraith Blades, and maybe even to a minor extent, these Wraith Guard. That really need to be protected. And a Wave Serpent apparently is a fairly tough tank, and some of the best tactics I've seen in the battle reports are when the Eldar player will charge in immediately with the tank, with the crew already in there. And if the tank gets blown up in hand-to-hand combat, which apparently is quite difficult, um, then they can always re-roll the wound to see if anyone dies, and then they just pop out right where they need to be. So playing really aggressively with Wave Serpents is kind of an interesting tactic. You can move them around real quick, and then get everything where they need to be. And then if you do make it the next turn with your Wave Serpent, you can just drop your payload right there.
There you go. Ferris says he likes to charge in with gaunts. As far as these sides go, that's pretty good tactics, I think.
Yes, yes. I used the Hormagaunts and the Termagants. Oh my god, they got wiped out so quick. I don't know why I charged with them. I was still not knowing what I was doing. I was like, yeah, take my Overwatch, me, and they all died.
Well, you had something that could puke them back up, which was nice.
I did. I had the Turbogon back there, and I was hoping to get her into hand-to-hand combat as well because she had the crushing
Crushing
claws.
claws, yeah.
Yeah, which I love the model for. I thought the model was just really neat looking.
That's such a good ass model, if we're honest. Like it's like the
The big
Tyranids have
pregnant sack
so
and the
cool models.
yeah, they're new large-scale monstrosities. Like I said, I guess I can show off this. You haven't seen this. I ordered it when I was down there to be delivered up here.
I knew you did. Is this your new
Mm.
oh shit. Hold on, let me switch over to your hand cam. Oh yeah.
So this is the new Flyrant.
I guarantee you would
Um,
have remembered him if he was on the field.
Not my pair of legs because the stupid ancient metal one shattered, and I had a pair of legs with 3 tyrant guards
The
sitting
pair of
of it.
ladies that was about as tall
Dude.
as the knees on this one go. Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah, so I immediately went and ordered the Hive Tyrant and gave him the wings and the Venom Cannon because I love Venom Cannons. I
Yeah.
love that he's splayed out on bouncing on his tail, and then has these massive scythed hooves and these massive, great clawing hands. And then I did do a couple different changes. I wouldn't call them conversions. I just used things that I shouldn't have. The kit actually allows you to build the Swarm Lord,
Hmm.
and he has this nice fatty cleaver spike. Again, the white there on his head, and the other ones are slightly smaller. And I like this one so much, I went ahead and just stuck it on there.
Hell yeah.
Because that's how I roll. Because I never want to say that word again. That's
Which
how I
one?
roll. It's not in my vocabulary.
Yeah, apparently it is. And then this
No,
is not the
no.
first time I've heard you use that.
Oh
Just
Jesus, really?
accept yourself. Accept
I'm gonna have
yourself.
to go like cut a finger off now.
Ooh, ooh, send it to me. I'll paint it on stream.
I'll recommend a varnish for it.
All
But
right,
yeah, as far
so
as like coloring things up, I mean, like I said, the Aspect Warriors, they have their color scheme with minor changes
yeah,
for the most part. But I think with the color schemes I'm looking at, like I think I'll do a pretty heavy detachment of the Beltan, probably a unit of the Guardians and a Dreadnought, and then probably the Wraith Guard, and then I'll use the Ulthwa and do the Ghost Axes, the other Dreadnought, and the other Guardians.
that's gonna be very interesting to come across. Ferris says, cutting my fingers off. That's how I roll."
Yes, yes.
Oh man. All right.
Yeah,
So
so I'm
just curious. The unit you're putting together. How close are we to completion on these guys? They must be getting kind of close, right?
I'll just have legs to do.
Nice.
This last four guys, so
And then for painting, the next thing are you going to go dive into straight painting as far as the are you going to go straight to the Eldari? Do you want to finish up some of your orcs? Do you want to do some of your Imperial Guard? What's your next, which one are you most excited to paint with? Oh, Ferris has to go
uh
to sleep. Night, dude.
night dude. Um Definitely the Eldari. I mean that's the one I've been building for a couple days and thinking about and prepping my colors. I've got some more colors coming. I think the only thing that would stop me from painting some of the units immediately is not having the right colors. One thing that Games Workshop has done very effectively is produce a color range where you do want to spend the money for all of the colors. In the past, I'm not going to say old days, god damn it. In the past, you would have to, mix the shades and the colors and so forth you wanted, even going so far as to water down paint to create your own inks. Um, and
That's
nowadays you
crazy.
just don't have to do that anymore. One of the concepts with let's just take a laser printer. When you have a normal desktop laser color printer, you have four colors.
Hmm.
You have black, you have yellow, you have cyan, and you have magenta. CMYK, right? And K is black.
Yep.
Um, and if you want to produce a gray, for instance, there's no gray ink in that printer. The way that you do that is that the black is laid onto the paper because the ink is sprayed on in a less dense pattern.
Hmm.
So if you were able to, look at that paper like under a microscope, you'd see there's actually less. If it was a 50% gray, there'd be 50% less black on the page.
Makes sense.
Um, and that's how you get those colors. But if, for instance, you had a gray ink, then that gray would be 100% coverage. It would be very intense and vibrant on the page
Yeah.
instead of being diluted. And probably an easier way to look at that would be like a yellow. 50% yellow is going to be 50% yellow, and it's going to look washed out. So new printers, instead of having four colors, have six or even eight. They're called hexachrome and octochrome printers, and so they actually have full strength colors of those secondary colors, which also means when they need to mix to create something like green, they're using full strength dye.
So
And
more
that just
vibrant.
comes across as a much more vibrant color scheme. And so the same thing happens with this, where if you needed a gray or a light red and you wanted to mix it, it would never look as good as a full vibrancy red.
Yeah.
And so Games Workshop has produced a line of colors that really give you that full range. And when they say, here are the recommended colors, it actually really behooves you to own those colors because you get that full intensity and they look really beautiful. And I mean, that's if you want to follow the color schemes, of course. If you
Yeah.
weren't
Yeah.
going to follow the color schemes, you could do whatever you wanted.
Yeah. Designing your own color scheme has its own pitfalls and advantages.
Exactly. And they'll never be as good as Ultramarines.
uh,
And I'm not saying that because I'm like complimenting Ultramarines. I'm just saying their rules will make sure that your own chapter will never be as good.
calm it down there. It's a shame Beard missed this stream. I think he would have had a lot of fun.
I think he would have enjoyed it, yes.
Oh man. But so as far as the painting goes, and now that you've abandoned the idea of any white basing because of the time of year and
White
your
primer.
white primer bassist. Um, is that changing your overall idea of who to take as far as what you're splitting your forces into?
As far as like color schemes,
Hmm.
yes. I will probably not have any Iyanden units in this army because the best and most effective way to get a beautiful color on them of that yellow is to prime them in white and then wash them in yellow. You can, of course, do the Averland Sunset as a base and paint it back up again. That would work completely fine. Um, which I may still do.
Have you thought about doing just like a, I know you'll probably be primarying in black, but doing maybe a near white as far as and do like 3 or 4 thin coats just to build up the white from the black and then going with it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Anything that I am not going to be undercoating in red or blue, which I bought primer in red and blue because for the Alatok,
A la talk,
and the all of the Wild Riders I'm going to paint are actually going to be blue and red.
the
They will all
Wheelod
be based in
Brothers.
black. Huh?
Okay, nothing. I'm just being a jerk. I was, for as far as pronunciation goes, I was like, oh, you mean the Willard Brothers?
Yes, exactly. From me,
He
Smeagol.
Smeag. Oh my god, anybody who gets that reference is instantly like
It's amazing.
100,000 friend points,
Yes, yes, exactly. Um, so yeah, almost everything that's not going to be red and blue will be based in black.
Now I gotta say, this army is seeming very. There's no unimportant units, so every time you lose anything, it's gonna be kind of like my Primaris, where it's a big deal.
Yeah, you're gonna feel it, and that's definitely what I've been reading too. Is that, it's not like Imperial Guard or Orcs or Tyranids. When you lose something, you're going to notice that you've lost it. A unit. In fact, I was cautioned quite a bit on the 4chan site, D4chan. I probably should make that very clear distinction. Minimum strength units or MSU. Um, is kind of something to be careful of, especially with aspect warriors. Oops, I just
Really?
went a little off camera here. Because if you start out with 5 and an Exarch and you lose 2, that is a brutal impact.
Ugh.
Some things do better when they have a little bit more um, to draw from, and it seems
Yeah.
like that's going to be part of this. But I'm not going to enhance any of those. Like Dark Reapers, they can be fairly minimum. Dire Avengers, I do have 2 squads of those that I will be fielding. And we'll see about the other ones. Like I have 2 Insta Rangers because I loved your scouts so much in that game that I went for the Rangers for this army because they work the same way, except they can score mortal wounds on characters,
Ugh.
which is pretty impressive.
It's funny. My scouts, usually they're just cannon fodder, but choosing to give them the camo cloak, which is another 2 points per model, which is nothing to be scoffed at. But I think once you get them in cover, getting that getting a 2+ to their saves is so insanely high that you can do something like I did, which is take that central piece of terrain and kind of claim it for your own, and really make it hard to take back, or at least make it so there's something to deal with and absorb so much more than they deserve to fucking take.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I believe that the Rangers can do something very similar, and there's a stratagem that makes them impossible to hit other than a 6 no matter what. It is a stratagem, though, so you can
Yeah,
only, you do it in the enemy shooting phase, which is a pretty nice little effect.
yeah, but
Um,
needing a 6 to fucking wound, or to even get close to, that's really, or 6 to hit. Oh,
Yeah, 6 to hit. So they
even
really
worse.
cut down on the options for that particular stratagem, which that'll be pretty fun.
Yeah,
Um, but I want to see how other units do. Like, I want to see how the Howling Banshees do before I buy more to fill out the unit.
yeah.
Especially with the fine cast. And with the fine cat with the resin models, I may not ever um, fill those out until the plastic models come out. And maybe not just because of the resin, but because you can't do anything with them. So when you order a kit of Aspect Warriors, you get, for the most part, the dragons were a little bit different.
Hmm.
Um, you get 4 models and an Exarch, and that's it. Like that's they come as almost one solid piece, except for
Yeah.
like their gun and their back. So if you wanted to fill out to a full 10 unit with one Exarch, like as a modeling perspective, like that's your shit out of luck. Like one of them's always going to be an Exarch. Um, and so
Yeah.
definitely, waiting around for the plastic kit so you can bypass that is definitely something that I might do. Whereas, like I said, the Dire Avengers, because they came out with that new box, they produced a plastic set for, so I don't have to produce one of them as an Exarch. Um, Now, having said that, if I ever, I probably would field them as 5 unit teams and very
Hmm.
rarely as a 10. So, I'm always going to want to stick that Exarch with them because they completely
Just makes
um,
sense.
they buff the unit's ability far beyond like a captain would.
So, which units, so now that you have a decent amount of armies and some more stake in the game, which units would you see most like to see new? Sorry, which army would you like to see new units for? And the correct
Let's
answer is
see.
Chaos Space Marines. But whatever your answer is, also okay.
I wouldn't suggest Space Marines only because I think they're getting them. Those new Blackstone Fortress ones are so
Oh,
nice,
they're so shiny.
and the Games Day model they came out with, and that Warp Talon champion they came out with.
Oh, you haven't seen the latest one then? They actually came out with another
I
one. I don't know
did,
if
I did.
he's.
I think I know
Oh,
which one you're talking about. With the Games Day one. Oh man.
oh my
So
god.
I feel like
Horned
they're going to
sorcery
be
looking
getting them.
fan fucking tastic. No, sorry.
Yes, I believe that they're going to get there. So I will leave them out, and I will try and whittle down any army that has a substantial, like Tau. I mean, Tau, like I don't think they have anything but plastic.
Yeah.
Um, and Space Marines, of course. I mean, they've got their Primaris stuff coming. They're getting all new characters that are all old characters and all new rules because they'll be Primaris. Um, Tyranids, of course, have gotten theirs. They really need new Hormagaunts and Termagants, but it's not a really high priority unit, and I totally understand that. People will want to have to rebuy 50 of those goddamn things.
Yeah, and
Imperial Guard is pretty solid as far as plastic models, I think. Orcs are very solid as far as plastic models.
yeah,
Let's see. So Chaos, having granted, so Chaos we think are getting them. Eldar absolutely um, are in dire
desperate need.
need of new plastic
Although I will
models.
say, the almost timeless design of them really speaks to the original casting of them. Whereas like the Marines and the Primaris and the Chaos Space Marines, the updates that they're getting are excellent. Like it's one of those things that feels like it's long overdue, but it's one of those things like they just look much better than they've looked in the past. Like the advantages are very obvious, where
Hmm.
when it comes to something like the Eldari, it's much more of a what could we do? It's a much harder problem to figure out what would it be to do. Like what's the thing to do to improve these models? You know,
That's very true. And honestly,
other
what you
than
could do.
just cast them in motherfucking plastic. Sorry, guys.
Well, yeah, I mean, ease of use, ease of conversion, ease of being able to create your own modifications to them, of course. But I don't know, like what armies are left. Like I don't think Necrons have very much that's not plastic.
Well, Necrons are hard because, like, and one of the reasons I'm kind of iffy on Necrons is it's kind of all look the same.
Well, yeah, and like painting, like I've never considered them as a serious potential army because like you spray them with lead belcher and you're pretty much done.
Which is so disappointing.
It's very disappointing. In fact, I that's why some of those new units that had more of an organic touch to them would have been a welcome addition. What I will say, though, people who have gotten new plastic units that are fucking crazy amazing, Drakari, their new mandrakes and stuff are beautiful.
Or the Triumvirate. That's one of the most impressive models I've ever seen.
Oh yeah,
It's
the
so cool looking.
Yniad.
Yeah, just so badass.
I will say though, if you wouldn't mind boxing up the Eldar, I definitely
I knew it.
I would love to have them now that they would actually be a force in my force. So
Well, there's that one. It has one of the gunship or transport.
that's the Ravager. Yeah, it has
Yeah, that
several
one.
bikes, a bunch of aliens, and
And the
all kinds of
surfers.
stuff.
Yeah, like it's not the only thing you probably couldn't use anymore are the weird dogs.
Oh yeah, I think they have new ones of those. What other armies are out there that I don't know? Have we missed anything?
Uh, take a look here. See if there's anything we're really forgetting. I mean,
I'm gonna pause this thing here real quick
I
so I
mean,
can.
orcs have some great. Oh, so we can switch over to your face. Orcs have some really great models and everything like that.
Yeah, and predominantly plastic. They are fantastic.
Thousand Suns just got some fantastic models, if I'm to say so myself. Like Thousand Suns are
Nice.
some pretty models.
Nice.
Gene Stealer Colts are getting a lot of new models as well.
Yep. The female Magus they have coming out is fantastic.
So really,
They
yeah,
also
I think we covered everything except for Yunari, which there's only one fucking model for anyway, which is just the Triumvirate, which you can use in a
right, and they're
Craftworld
pretty
army.
much brand new anyways too.
Yeah,
So yeah, I guess it's most of everything. Really, it seems like Eldar and Chaos Space Marines are the ones that really need some love.
yeah, or the non-Ultramarine chapters.
Yes, they need to come back to many of any of the first founding. I mean, come on, any of the first founding chapters are up um, for getting some additional stuff, and I really appreciate that they have started to go in and pick out some characters for all of them. Like I think almost
Hmm.
all of the founding chapters now have special characters of some kind. Like even the Raven Guard, which has predominantly been an ignored race for a tremendous amount of, or army for it's got like has Shrike and stuff, you know. So
Yeah, but I mean, let's face it, Raven Guard. I mean, who's really that excited? No, I'm just kidding.
well, I mean, if they keep adding some, I mean, I think they have like winged troops now too with like Raven
Shit,
wings. Like,
that's pretty
let
cool.
me grab my iPad here, and if I find some pictures,
Okay, one weird thing is there's so many unique models for the Legion of the Damned, but who the fuck are the Legion of the Damned? I don't know them.
um, I actually don't know anything about them either. I think they were unfortunately one of these things that were put in, and then someone who kind of ham-handed their lore, and then now nobody really cares about them.
Yeah, because it seems like they seem like hastily added. They're like totally 90s in all of their aspect. Skulls and flames and black and white. Like,
Yes, yes.
and like just seems super ham fucking fisted and like, but they have like you can get a strike force of like an entire force of the Legion of the
All right,
Damned.
let's take a look at what we can find here. So, wait, what were we gonna look at? I forgot already.
Oh, we were just looking at stuff that needed new models, but we were getting
Oh,
into the
Raven
founding
Guard.
chapters, Raven Guard. So just go to the
Mhm.
top there and search Raven Guard.
Yeah, I think like I was looking for him in the filter over there, but there's Shrike. That
Yep.
might be all.
Yeah, I think it's just Shrike, and then
Yep,
well,
just
they have a
Shrike.
dark. No, they have a Raven Wing, Dark Talon, Dark Shroud, and Bike Squadron.
But Raven Wing is Dark Angels.
Yeah, no, they're fucked.
That is a pretty neat model, though.
I gotta admit,
That
not
is a
bad at
pretty
all.
cool model. That is a pretty cool model.
And where I forget who Raven Guard even are anymore.
Corax.
Korax. Oh yes, the most. Oh yeah, he exists. Primarch.
Yeah, and well, and Ferris Manus, I think, is even below that.
Nah, I see. Ferris Manus at least went out like a man, like standing toe to toe, getting his head cut off. And like, he was
But his Legion, though, like his Legion, like who knows that the Iron Hands are not the Iron Warriors?
well, the Iron Hands, but they're like the opposite of they're like the reflection of the Iron Warriors. And so, like, if
Mm,
Iron Warriors hadn't fallen to
Well,
chaos,
the
like,
Imperial Fists are the reflection of the Iron Warriors.
I mean, they are now that the
Remember, they're Siege Warriors. Like
yeah,
Perturabo hated Rogel because Rogel said that no army could ever defeat the Imperial Palace, and
that's true.
Perturabo got super pissed off because he's like, "We are the Siege. We can tear it down. What you can build, we can tear asunder."
Oh, I gotta admit, Ferris Manus though, his warriors, even now you can get the Iron Warriors upgrade pack, so they have
Oh,
the
Iron Hands.
more or Iron Hand, sorry, they get the more tech marine feel to them and upgrades, which are pretty cool. Like they're kind of very Terminator, like not like Terminator, but like I'm come to save you, Terminator look to them. So it's
Yeah,
actually, as far as
Forge
model wise, they have one of the more unique looks. For me, they stick out because I was obsessed with Fulgrim's lore, and so
Yeah, I would say, too, that like I think that's one of the best offerings that Forge World really has are the Space Marine customization and Imperial Guard customization models, where you can get like just the shoulder pads or just new helms. Like I think that's phenomenal.
yeah. Oh man,
That's a great use. Now that is a great use for resin.
that's an
You can
okay
produce it as
use
you
for
need it.
resin.
They're easy to clean up. I know you're like nothing, and I agree with you. Nothing is good. Is a good reason for resin. Wow, I
Oh
guess after
man,
I assemble these four guys, everything from this batch will be assembled.
hell yeah. Oh man, that Storm Raven is so expensive, but so fucking cool.
How much is it?
8250.
Try it. What's it on Amazon?
Let's find out,
Sometimes
shall
you can
we?
get them a little bit cheaper.
Let's see, Storm Talon. It's really weird. My keyboard is out of place to make room for all of the painting and everything. What the? Oh, that's a Stormhawk. Okay. Um, so the Storm Raven is $70.13 on Amazon.
It is less
The really weird thing is
technically.
like the Stormhawk, which is pretty close. No, I guess it must be much smaller. Is only 47.
Yeah, it's tiny by comparison.
Oh, okay, yeah, never mind then. Yeah, because yeah, the Storm Raven's one of those things that actually the game that I won with Chaos, I beat it to death with a, with a demon prince, so it couldn't shoot me to death.
Nice.
Such a cool model. I'm not gonna lie.
Apparently a fucking good one. Ah, fuck me.
What happened?
I dropped a piece with glue on it, and now I'm going to.
Oh, I just watched you drop it on the stream. Yep. No, sorry about that.
Yep. God damn it, where is it? This whole area here is covered with a fine ashy layer of plastic.
I love that.
Oops, and my battery pack is dead. No. I need light! Light! Oh god! Oh, I'm gonna do it in the dark because I don't have any other lights. Oh, there it is. I found it. Oh. Fucking hate having to glue hands and support weapons.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so oh man, it's really been nice having these two different webcams. Because uh, like one of them I'm actually using to broadcast to you, and the other to the stream. Uh,
Nice.
and so yeah, which normally you wouldn't be able to see me if I only had the one, and it's been kind of a interesting thing to figure out. I don't know, because one of them has better, one of them has like a little bit better look, but the other one has higher frames per rate, and you can actually set it to a streamer mode, and so it's been kind of cool to kind of play around with the two of them, and one of them will definitely be a look at this bitch workout cam. Like the punishment cam when I'm doing regular streams where people can pay stream points to make me work out.
Try and make you vomit.
Ah, yeah. I love how you're the only one who's like, don't make him puke, guys.
Yeah, like, I don't want to do this.
I don't want
Candace
to
and Michael are
actually see that.
yeah.
I love Candace. She's like, guess how many points I have? Push-ups, bitch.
And Michael's like Doritos or whatever they were.
Pringles.
Oh God.
Yeah, the pressed chip.
Ah, the pressed chip, the reconstituted potato flake, and there's no potato in it.
Speaking of, let's grab some Pringles here. This is the oh look, I have
Brought
the
to you
sour
by
cream and
Pringles.
onion, and they're actually being chroma keyed out because it's a green can.
Oh, I'm not looking at your stream, so I don't see the.
Oh, okay. Well,
It
you'll
is
know they're
exactly
being.
the same color, though.
Oh man. All right,
That's
so
a really great idea, just to have a screen. Your thing, your chroma screen behind you.
hmm
Like just to have a way of blocking out things behind you is kind of nice. Your sailfish.
it really is. Yeah, and nice thing is on most streaming software you can bring in the corners of the actual camera itself, so you can bring it in a little bit and then kind of manage it more effectively.
For like a couple bucks, you can get like 20 of these on Amazon.
Really? Can you send me that
Yeah,
link? That looks like quite useful.
sure. Yeah, they're
Because
just little plastic pallets, and I got a whole shitload of them and gave half of them to Candace for her painting. So
hell yeah, yeah. Because ooh, those Pringles are actually quite good. I have some more.
I'm getting hungry. I
I
haven't
know,
eaten
me
in a
too.
while.
Ugh, I'm on a diet because
Yeah,
I'm
Pringles
fat.
diet?
Shut your fucking mouth. No, like it's just like a certain amount of calories per day.
Oh,
Um,
gotcha.
that's why I was drinking a vodka martini instead of a real drink.
Yep, because clear alcohol
hmm No, basically I'm having a protein bar for breakfast, a salad for lunch, and
and a
then a
sensible dinner.
lean cuisine for dinner, and that's it.
Very nice. I have
And
to make. We've been on the way back. I think I told you Candace put on an audiobook of the China study, which is a
yeah,
diet nutrition study that was pretty phenomenal and eye-opening
hmm,
about nutrition and so forth. And it kind of was the last one I needed to really push myself to be the full vegan. And I have to say, after the last few days of cooking our own food and eating really clean, like my energy level has gone right through the roof. It's
that
been
was
it's been
one thing.
really staggering. I mean, I know that because of my various health issues, a lot of that
Yeah,
stuff affects me much more intimately, much faster. Um, but yeah, the impact on me personally from, tromping up the stairs and not having any energy and not feeling well to like zipping around and having energy and feeling great and getting things done is it's I haven't changed anything except my diet.
that's amazing. Like, for
Yeah.
me, it takes forever for any dietary changes to make place, which is good and bad. Like six of one, half a dozen of the other.
Hmm, hmm.
Because like, at one point, like it's like, oh man, this will make me feel good eventually. But on the other hand, it's like I feel pretty okay, depending on it doesn't really matter what I eat, because I haven't stuck to a diet long enough for it to really make me feel that amazing.
Yeah, gotcha.
It's really weird, like that being like not like being let's say comfortably overweight, where you're not like to a point where you're like this is a problem, but to be a point where like I kind of
This
miss where
might be a problem.
I miss where my chin used to be. Like I miss having one chin instead of two when I do this is kind of weird. Like so it's been kind of interesting trying to decide like like trying to figure out like how much I care about the problem and what the overall outcomes of the problem are going to be, and to accurately assess the situation is clouded by the fact of there it's not an urgent situation, but it is, because the sooner you start eating better and doing things for yourself and make yourself feel better, the sooner you don't have to worry, like the sooner you're not going to die as quickly. Like it's a
That
fucking
is true.
real thing that is
That is
so
true.
hard to mentally quantify.
And then I had another USB cable kicking around. I finally killed my battery, and I was.
Well, it looks like you
Mm,
effectively finished up your units and everything.
I found it. Did I find it? Yeah, I did find it.
Oh, gorgeous.
Yeah, I think that is that for this particular batch. Um,
Do you have another batch coming for Eldari?
I do, yes, because I'm a freak.
You,
And
sir, have a problem if not sharing. No.
I did though. You more than
Oh,
anyone
are you
else.
kidding me? That was completely facetious. Why do you think I'm sharing so hard back? I'm like, no, seriously, you do want these. You'll realize it eventually.
Yeah, there's not. I know, right? You totally called that one. There isn't a lot. What am I looking for? I don't have a thing. I need a thing. Ty?
Yeah.
Where's my thing?
Which thing?
Yeah. A thing for me to plug into. And oh, I can steal one
Oh,
of those.
it sounds dirty. I'm gonna put my Sally's Manders away. That's right. First unit done. That is the hardest unit apparently. The rest.
Yes, I would agree with that. Getting that first one done is a important milestone. And now that you have it, you can feel confident and you can really get to grips with a really good majority of your army.
Oh yeah,
Um,
like I said, really only Vulcan and the other characters are the ones that I'm worried about. Like as far as aggressors go, you know, same verse, same as the first, only with just a few more details on the lieutenant because he's got a few more intricacies. But I think I can handle those. But
Right
everything else,
on.
I feel pretty confident on, which is fucking huge. Kudos to you as far as you know. Before I was like, I painted a death guard. Woo! I painted another death guard. He doesn't look as good as the first. Ah, motherfucker. I
What do
painted
I
a
do? What
third
do I
death
do?
guard. Oh, he turned out okay. What did I do differently? I have no idea. The models are so different. I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, like I said, once again for the Space Marine Army too, you're gonna be able to paint like all of your troopers, all of your elites, all of your heavy support, and then when you get to the point where you're tackling like the dreadnought and the tank and your characters, you're gonna know what to do for 90% of it. What you're gonna be looking
That's
for
true.
is, like you said, the fire, the additional symbols, that kind of stuff, and that's the stuff you can look up. And Warhammer TV has a bunch of really great stuff. I've actually been
It's
getting
true.
a tremendous amount of. I don't have many more things coming. I have mostly paints coming. I have some Swooping Hawks and some Howling Banshees. Hooray, more resin. I have a Spirit Seer, a Wave Serpent, and a Fire Prism. And I
Damn.
think that's it.
Oh, is that it?
Oh, and Vipers. Vipers the jet bikes too.
I gotta be honest. I'm gonna have a hard time building anything but chaos as far as 3,000 points is coming.
Yeah, I was a little
Like,
surprised by that too. I mean, not that you have to build the entire thing.
oh no, don't worry. Chaos, I can bring 3,000 points to the table, and the fact is, you're not built against those, so that might actually be better for me.
That's true. That's true.
I mean,
And
we'll find
I
out.
don't really know how I'm going to deal with a lot of the hand-to-hand combat without a couple units. You know what I mean?
Actually, the hand-to-hand I don't see being that big of a problem because your Overwatch and shooting is going to be really, really good. It's just with chaos, if I get lucky, you fucked. All right. So as far as the stream goes, though, we're kind of entering on midnight, and I do have to go to sleep at this point. So,
Me too.
uh,
I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow morning. I probably should get myself some
doctor's appointment.
food.
I'll go ahead and stop the stream here. Then I do thank everybody for watching. We had a wonderful time, and we got some units built, and we'll be kind of diving into more of the everything some other time. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day.